Topic 1. Rap has long been controversial because of the content of its lyrics. It regularly features violence, misogyny, homophobia, and etc. Is it fair to say that rap is damaging to the community? Should we at all be concerned with how people outside of the community view it? Can we imagine a popular form of rap that doesn't feature these themes? All right, so we all know how hip hop is viewed, but like, is there anything to it? Like, are those criticisms, are they valid? And should anything be done about it? Because you can have valid criticisms of art, but then not want to do anything. Like, oh, well, that's just the way it is. So, we'll do 1 minute introduction. Start with Pyro.
Yeah, to say very simply, while we know rap has been criticized in certain ways because of who, what type of people, black people have, led it, spearheaded it, we can look at that, with the specific criticisms that like it has. Yeah, I'd say some of those do have value, right? Like when we talk about misogyny in rap music, is that inherently something that's necessary? Homophobia in rap music, is that something inherently necessary? To an extent, we can talk about like if it's too violent or whatever, but like then that gets into the history of where rap music comes from, the problems it represents and like what it portrays and whatnot, and like in the style that it does. But like those two things specifically, like misogyny and homophobia, I think rap music can do without. And like I've personally heard some good rap in recent years put out that neglects those aspects, and it's pretty damn good. That's my 1 minute opening. I'll leave it at that.
Uh, Kutsu, you don't have to raise your hand. Remember, everyone goes. So, all right, next Clavicus.
Yeah, in regard to the violent part of it, I don't really think that's I wouldn't conclude that rap music is damaging as far as like increasing violence or anything like that. There are some studies that point to some like contrary evidence. They're not as far the stuff that I found wasn't very conclusive though. And I'll share those once we start talking about them if it even comes up. In regard to how we talk about groups of people though, I do feel like that is damaging. Whenever you're talking about a group of people negatively, that's going to sway people's opinions of those groups, and people's opinions of those groups being negative can cause damaging effects for those people. And how this is viewed outside of, just the community, how everybody else views it, I think can lead to certain stereotypes, but I don't know that rappers have any kind of like obligation to change that. But we can debate on that later.
Madeline.
So I've got like some mixed feelings here, right? Because like obviously, if there's like misogyny being like portrayed as a positive thing in any kind of media, it's like bad, right? But I feel like there's not much difference between rap and say like what you see on like media from like a variety of cultures, right? Like if you tune into Game of Thrones, you see like boobs hanging out and women being treated terribly. If you tune into like a variety of media, you can see a variety of groups actually acting in a similar manner. And I think I'm being really vague here, but like I think the idea would be that rap is kind of being over caricature that can't say words over stereotyped, and I think that it would be unfair to say that rap is bad for black culture and not compare it to other aspects of other cultures that have these types of features that share features with rap. Yeah, so I'm excited to bring that up as it comes in, but I think I think it's just being overhyped as negative overall.
Okay, let's go with Kutsu.
Yeah, so I didn't really prepare for these topics, so this is just more off the cuff. But if you want to say like rap has some negative aspects, I probably disagree because rap is not a monolith. Rap isn't one thing. You can say individual actors can portray bad messages in rap. Specifically, if you talk about people who portray misogyny and drug use as, kind of glorifying these things, you can say that that's pretty bad, and no one would disagree with you. But my second point is going to be like, again, going back to what Mad Lad said, is like, this happens in other medias. I mean, the person who is saying this probably is a video gamer, would watch anime, and these things are, show various amounts of misogyny, do various amounts of, dangerous tropes. I mean, it's present in all media. But you would probably defend someone if someone says like, we just had the Gamergate saga where all gamers rose up and defended video games. So to say that rap as a monolith is bad, one, isn't true, and two, isn't helpful.
Okay, all right. Let's go with Backlash.
So I think the important thing to think about would be whether or not rap is what's causing people to engage in certain types of behavior, like the negative behavior that you're talking about, like misogyny and violence and things like that, or do they exist like separately from it? I personally think that two things actually. So I think it'd be hard to tell whether or not, okay, this person listened to rap music, this is why they're doing this, or they just listen to this because they're already engaging in this type of behavior. So just one thing that I think about. And also and actually Cutzley's kind of brought up a good point, how like there's the whole controversy of video games and things that came up where it's like, okay, violent video games are a thing, and is that what's causing, are people being more violent because they're playing violent video games, or is there something more to it? Because personally, like, I've listened to rap music, not a whole lot of it, but it's like, and I know other people listen to it too, but they don't, the people that I know don't all necessarily act the same way. So it'd be weird for me to just come out and say that, okay, rap music is causing all these negative things or causing people to do these negative things. I think it may just be, I think there's just more to it than just the music itself. But that's my short take on it for now.
Uh-huh.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna have to give the counter. I think as far as considering rap a monolith of violence, misogyny, and homophobia, I think a lot of things got turned down. I think especially the homophobia got turned down because back in the day, you could even see like Eminem is probably the biggest example of this, where like almost every song had some kind of like F slur or something crazy going on in it that just a little bit too offensive, maybe even for the times, back in the Eminem show and all that stuff. But as far as like rap influencing people to do bad shit, that is undeniably true. Maybe not the average fucking white kid or like even black kid that lives in like suburbia, but like one of the biggest like complaints from people that are actually in hip hop today and actually hang out in like circles like in every kind of like major, black area. I'm talking like Philly, New York, Chicago. Like the music influences real life events. There's a whole like genre of rap music about drilling, about doing all kinds of bad shit that like definitely gets people killed, one, and all these people that do the killings and or have gotten killed like have been like really big like rap stars, like too big to ignore, not just some one-off people, but like Lil Durk, Pooh Shiesty, like Chief Keef. Like there are a bunch of people that are like really rapping about real shit that they do, that definitely the music, like the back and forth between different gangs like GD raps and blood raps and Crip raps, they definitely inspire some real violence in the streets. If I could get rid of it overnight, like if I was a god and could snap my finger, I probably would, for the sake of the people that live in like super like unfortunate circumstances where they're forced to like gangbang and sell drugs to survive. But at the end of the day, like the shit slaps and I'm going to listen to it because the realistic chances of this changing require the like cultural circumstances of Black people in unfortunate situations to change, which just will not happen anytime soon. That is like so far outside of music that seeing the byproduct of like these like cultural systemic issues, like it's fine. You can enjoy it. I don't think that's like too big of like a problem anyone should have to deal with. But that's like my quick thoughts.
Oh, okay. All right. Open to the panel.
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit more? Because you were talking about that it inspires real life violence, and you're talking about gangs or whatever. The gangs end up acting violently toward one another, but wouldn't these people just be rapping about like their experiences and like their life?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I agreed with like literally almost everything Baja Blast Free said. One of the biggest problems I have with rap is exactly the same thing. Going into more specifics, like you see it influences like because it's like some of the messages that are being presented out there. Like we're already a hard, it's like a hard knock life. You're gonna have to scrap to survive. And then the messages being put forth is like, well, I got my way up by shooting homies on the street who looked at me the wrong way, or like, I had to make my money selling shit on the street, objectifying women. And then you look at these characters in like their real life, and not all of them, some of them do hold up to like what they're saying they do in their rap songs, but like, come on, like some of them, nah, you weren't a gangbanger. You weren't out there shooting people on the streets, bro. You went to Princeton. Like, let's be real. Like, let's be real for a little bit. So I think like some of the negative aspects that like I can kind of see, it's like, well, you're presenting a false narrative. If you want to rap about your experiences, that's fine. And this is one of the reasons I said like I don't necessarily, we can get into the argument about how much rapping violently or including that type of thing in your music can influence people. But like when I look at the experiences being rapped about, I'd say like, maybe half of them don't even have those experiences. So why are they being presented like, almost wholesale, like, yeah, this is the experience. This is what we're doing. And it's like, you want to rap about your experience? Rap about your experience. You're like a nice suburb kid. Rap about being a nice suburb kid being surrounded by like white people who might look at you funny. That'd be a pretty cool rap. Like, yo, I had to deal with these issues. I felt ostracized or shit like this, but I worked my way up, got into Princeton, and now like, look at me. I'm a fucking self-made millionaire. That'd be a cool rap. Don't sell shit that you're not doing, man. That's fake.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
right.
understand
Oh,
that
right.
there's gonna be like I understand, especially recently, there's rappers who rap about things that they didn't go through and experience a life that they didn't actually have. But I guess what I'm saying is like in regard to the real life violence that's actually happened, where we're saying that there's been like gang violence that's happened as a result of these songs. Who are the people then that we're talking about that inspired that violence that did not actually like weren't part of any of these gangs? Like, what are we talking about?
So when let's talk about one of the biggest songs out right now. It's called Back in Blood, and there's a bunch of remixes. There's Back in Blood remix 1, 2, 3. There's so many, right? And this is a whole song about Pooh Shiesty and Little Durk talking about the gangs that they have, well, rival gang members / just ops in general that they have killed. They have taken their chains, and if the people want to get, like, if the friends of the people that were killed want to get their chains back, they have to pay it back in blood. That they are directly asking for more smoke back if you want to take back what is yours, what has been taken from you. So these are definitely individuals that are probably, for like all intents and purposes are involved in the killings. But at the end of the day, people with that much influence, people in those circles, like Lil Durk and Pusha, like they are now mainstream and they have a backing from their respective gangs and a backing from just like people around them in general, to the point where they're getting other people, usually younger people, involved as their like shooters. Like when people run drills and like spin blocks, which is just essentially slang for like, doing a drive-by, doing a hit on like someone else's block, like that is not really done. Well, the smart ones are not really done by the rappers themselves, but it's like a direct call to violence. Like, and it 100% can probably be linked to a bunch of deaths. For example, Little Durk in that Back in Blood song, I think maybe, I don't know how long after the song came out, but like his cousin got killed. Someone that wasn't like that involved, wasn't someone that was supposed to be that person that's supposed to live that life and be his shooter, got killed in response to like the music that's being made, essentially in response to all this like bravado that's being shown. So that's like a direct example of just like how people outside of the life or people like adjacent to the life kind of get taken into the violence. And that's not even to like go into how like, if someone's like spinning a block and you're like the house that's near the person that they're trying to hit, like there's an inherent danger to that too, right? So like there are real people being involved in this directly from music.
But that's not like the entire genre. That's like one specific song. And like you can look at songs in all the different genres and find calls to violence and calls to do really fucked up shit, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like the
But
question
guess what?
is
We're talking
like,
about one of the biggest
Yeah.
like sections of rap right now. Like drill shit is like some of the biggest, like Pop Smoke and all these like UK beats. Like these people are all part of the same genre of music, which is like inherently, I think, probably the most popular version.
So like
We're out of the trap era, we're into the drill era, which is literally music about killing people.
yeah, like my contention like would be along those lines of like when we like, because like I understand what you're saying, Mad Latin. When we look to other forms of media and shit, we can still like like we can dig through all of it and find like, oh yeah, we have country music that's like literally the most racist shit about like, going out and committing violence. Problem is when we talk about country music versus rap, not leading in the charts. That's not like, the top
right.
10 for country music. When you look at rap, like Baha Blees said, like you're seeing a new shift towards like actual songs that kind of glorify violence. And that's where my problem is. Like, if you want to do like some 90s rapper shit, like Clavicus was talking about, rapping about the experiences, they may be violent, they may be bloody. But like, if you're rapping about it in a way where it's like, yo, this wasn't good. This wasn't how I made my life, and now I'm a millionaire because I did this. This was, actually pretty harmful, and maybe it was bad to an extent. That, like, I think that's where, like, I would be like, yeah, no, I don't see a violent aspect in that. My problem is, like, it seems a lot of it's just glorifying it, like, just
Right.
openly glorifying these what our society calls now negative behaviors. And like, yeah, to an extent, they're negative
So like,
behaviors.
yeah, so it's selling well, and I guess my question then, so I'm largely ignorant on a lot of this. Like I did a little bit of research to like fill in the gaps. So I'm
Mad
relying a
Lad,
lot on
listen to some rap music.
yeah, listen to some no. I listened to like Lupe Fiasco and stuff like on my own before, but no, I think my point here, I'm looking at this like largely in like a very cultural sense, right? Like, okay, so we can compare the songs in rap that are calls of violence to other things, and I agree that the fact that the rap is selling more is an indicator of something. But what is that something? Is it actually the rap that's causing these events to happen? I mean, like, there's some like
Oh,
circular stuff going on, right? Like as GSU was saying in chat, or no, it wasn't GSU, someone else. Someone said that art is life and life is art, right? Like, so like the idea is that like something's happening in real life, and then art is made about that thing, and then people look at that art and are inspired to continue that thing in life, right? So it's a
yeah.
little bit cyclical in nature. So the question is the fact that all this stuff is selling like hotcakes right now a reflection on the rap actually being very relatable to a lot more folks now than ever before, or is it a situation where this rap is actually surprisingly more inspirational now than ever before? And it strikes me that it'd be more of the former rather than the latter.
So like I think it's a bit of a dumb question in itself, like to kind of ask, like, no offense, like it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Like I
Well, it
don't
is.
think I think like asking that question is like kind of redundant. Like, yeah, we can try and figure out where it begins, right? Like, is there a societal aspect to it, or is it like the fact
That's
that
an
it's just
important question
no,
because
it's a very important question, but for the conversation, like the fact that it's still continuing, we can all agree that's a problem. Where it comes
yeah,
from, right? Like, does it really matter where it comes from?
yeah,
Yeah,
because
to
it
How
answer the
so?
essentially
question of the
solves.
panel, yeah, it does.
It
Yep.
absolutely does. It's very relevant because you need to know why the violence is happening. Like, is the rap actually triggering the violence, or is it like
Oh
there's this
no, like,
guns in a
Let's
community
yeah,
and
we could break it down because in the same way that there was a shift from like Sugar Hill Gang to like actual NWA gangster rap, there's been a greater shift towards like more violent, like way more violent rap in recent years. And a lot of that may not be inspiring. Like I said in my opening, like this is not gonna do like hearing these violent raps and shit is not gonna do shit for like a fucking suburb kid. It's not gonna do anything. I don't think it's the same thing as like violent video games to me. However, it absolutely does matter to the real people that live in places like O Block, that live in the fucking boroughs in New York, that actually are like, these are named streets, these are named environments that like real black people live in and that real black people are influenced by. If you live in O Block, you have a shitty life. If I go to like a rapper that was super big and just like unfortunately passed away, like King Von, huge rapper, like he was like breaking in the scene, like part of that drill rap scene. And he would like be one of the more explicit rappers to talk about his deeds. So far, like that like there's an article now. I guess I could just link it. It's from the UK, but fuck that, I'll put it in the chat. After his death, it was revealed that he was like the killer of a 17-year-old girl who was like known in like Chicago, who killed like a dozen people. And this was something that was like rapped about and leaked in a snippet, and also just talked about prior to whenever he actually killed her, like in music. And I think like it's impossible to like separate that like the music and stuff influences like real life if there are
okay,
like
so like
snippets of this before he even killed her.
maybe I was a little bit too hasty in calling it a dumb question. I'll fully admit that. But the way I'm looking at this is like when we talk about like the violence that's being glorified and whatnot, right? Like this transcends rap music in like in all forms. Like we can trace this shit back to like decades before it was even like top 10 billboards or anything, and before it was like actually recognized as like a viable form of music. So like that's where I'm coming from in it. Like this violence has been here for a minute. It seems like rap has transformed, like when it came about, like first it, first it was like rapping about some of the negative aspects, and then it's progressively been getting more and more violent to the point of like actually glorifying it. I'm more interested in why that change has happened, not necessarily where the violence itself is coming from. You want to talk about where misogyny in the black community come from? We can. I'm sure everyone would love to. You want to talk about where homophobia in the black community comes from? We can, and I would absolutely love to like figure out why. But like when it comes to the issue of rap music specifically, what about, is there something about rap music in general, or like what about is like where we're like, yeah, we'll actually keep pushing this type of rhetoric to the Billboard charts and like, transition the genre away from like maybe some of its more positive aspects that people might point to about like the 90s rap.
I mean, this is gonna be my ignorant take a little bit, but I mean, well, maybe not. Like, I think it's like sort of, don't these questions like kind of go hand in hand, like a little bit? Like, okay, why is there misogyny in rap? Why is there violence in rap? Versus why is rap getting more increasingly violent, and why is it more acceptable? Like, I think all this kind of fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. Like, I think you can like look at how wealth disparity and so on is making folks more violent in general, and as a result, more violent things seem more appealing. Like, that would be my argument.
So
I have a question about this then.
I
So
mean,
if we're saying that
go
the
ahead.
so if we're saying that the rap is what's causing all this, this is kind of a hypothetical, but let's say if we take away all the bad messages in rap, do we think that do we see society changing, or I guess the black community, do you think that it's
No.
going to change things for the better, or is this just like one piece of the puzzle?
So like for me, like that's kind of the bush I've been beating around. I don't think that like rap is the main cause of these issues. I think that like with the popularity that we're seeing and like the shift that we've been seeing it go to, like for some reason we're just like, yeah, no, okay, this is just a deal. Like society has been bad for black people for like ever. This type of crime has been around for a long time. Seems like now it seems like for me it seems like a resignation to like, yeah, society's this way, the government at hand, the society at hand is not changing it. Shrug it off. We're leaning into it sort of. So I don't think like if you take away all of the bad messaging that like society is going to magically Thanos snap into a perfect future. Like that's not going to happen. We're still going to be dealing with these issues, a lot of them.
And let me add on there as the other voice of dissent.
Let Cutsy again.
So what I was gonna say is like, I mean, even if this type of rap is popular, I mean, let's just point out the obvious. It's mostly white people buying it, right? White people buy it more than black people. So if you talk about the destruction or violence it causes, why don't you think it has a similar or the same effect on Caucasian or the suburbs in the areas where they're blasting it the most? It seems like it's more obvious, or the more simpler explanation is rap isn't a cause of any of this violence. It's more of a symptom of these violences, and that it doesn't, it's not the root, or it's not the solution that we're looking for.
There's like too much of a black and white dichotomy here. So look,
Yeah.
like again, I've been saying from the beginning, like this is not going to affect anyone in the suburbs, and I guess to explain on that is because none of these people live where they're going to be affected by this. So like when we talk about whether this is the root or the symptom, or like is the root or the symptom, or is it the cause? Like at the same time, like these are real people rapping about real things, right? Like I can go through a list if we want. I could take 5 minutes. I could go through a list of songs that are tied to actual crimes, that are tied to actual murders that happened. And we can go see how these like things probably like actually, connect in some way, and how they probably influence each other. At the end of the day, this affects the gangs that are rapping, like BD, like King Von was a black disciple of BD. Like his raps influenced other BDs. I think that's undeniable to say. I think having someone that is a part of your gang become a hit star, become a hit rapper, is undoubtedly going to affect you if they have beef with somebody else, which King Von was known to do. He's known to be an angry ass nigga. Like he was that guy. So it may not affect every person that ever listens to rap, but that was never my argument. But it does absolutely affect the gangs and the places where these gangs come from. Like it's undeniable. You cannot live on O Block and have a good life. And a large part of that is because music causes beef, and that beef propagates. It makes more music, and it makes more beef even outside of that music. So it may not be like.
So you're saying if the music was not there, there wouldn't be any beef whatsoever?
That's not at all
No,
what
No,
I'm
he
saying.
was just saying
okay,
not to take it to those extremes. You guys are
yeah.
looking at it very black and white, is what he was saying. So
Okay,
you don't want to approach it that way. And
Yeah.
I get what he's saying too, right? Because there's other factors that are going to be in it. Because he keeps bringing up, okay, if you grew up on O Street, you didn't have a good life. We can understand this, like, okay, if you live a very affluent life, if you're like in the suburbs, right, you don't grow up in poverty, the chances of you committing violent crime is probably going to be less. And we know that poverty is linked to crime, right? And so it makes sense that people in a different circumstance might be influenced differently by the same thing versus people in a, you know, better circumstance.
I think a more to combat that point a little bit further, because it might white people might buy it more, and like we talk about how the black culture is viewed. How do you think they're going to view the black culture? Like, good portion of these suburban people, like, they come into the cities to work and then they go back to the suburbs and do literally everything else. How do you think they're going to view the black culture if, like, a big portion of the influence they see is rap music actually glorifying, homophobia, violence, misogyny. And like that's the thing I really like.
Wait, why do you care?
Why do I care?
Care what suburban kids think of you?
Because if I actually come into contact with them, and that does happen because they do move out of the suburbs eventually, that means I'm probably going to be running into a bunch of people who I have to explain, no, the black community isn't a bunch of gang banging thugs who hate gay people and beat their women. No, we don't all just fucking drink. No, not 13. No, we're not all in gang. Like the fact that like I've had to do that several times in my life already is fucking tiring. I don't want to have to do it anymore. Like, and again, it's not going to solve the issue wholeheartedly. There are just people who are going to believe that, but like maybe glorifying that in music that is typically seen as black might help like move that stereotype back a little bit.
So, yeah, I don't understand. I guess I'm going a bit with cut sleeve. Is that like that sounds like bit to me like respectability politics? Let's get ourselves together for the white people, all right? So that they will like us slightly better. No, I don't think that's gonna do it, right? Like I feel like if hip hop disappeared tomorrow, it wouldn't do a damn thing to help white America's image of us.
Well, look, you can think of it like this. Like suburbs also think, I mean, they think of the same as they do. Well, not exactly the same, but they think similarly to like Hispanics, and Hispanics aren't, all that into rap.
Again, so like we're taking it back to like the really black and white level we try to avoid. I'm not saying it's going to solve the problem 100%. To what percentage it might solve the problem, I don't fucking know, right? But like it's one of the things that's there that I don't think should just be ignored, and that's what I'm saying. If you want to say like we do this and it's not going to like change the opinions of white people for 98%, yeah, probably you might be right about that. I don't know to how much this is going to solve the issue. I know that like it seems to be a problem that's been hit on by, black people, white people, pretty much everyone. And like, we can ignore it, yeah, sure, but like the problem does come in the fact that like there still is that glorification of certain negative aspects. That's the part that I'm trying to hit at.
And what is this problem again trying to like what's the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Is it that the white people won't give us loans when we go to the bank? Like what exactly you're saying that you said before, you mentioned how you had to deprogram some white suburban kids who had all kinds of ideas, notions in their mind, but like their racist grandpa is going to tell them that any which way, right? Like that's going to happen one way or the other. And beyond that, like the media, right? The media in general. So you could say that well, black people at least have a hand within hip hop. All right, sure, certainly, but like media in general that helps shapes these narratives is oftentimes not in our control. Like going back to that Game of Thrones example, like that's popular media, but that's get in the hands of white individuals. But here the thing is with Game of Thrones, when it's like glorifying violence, it's white people doing it, and so white people are never put on trial for that. It's like it's never a reflection on white culture when there's like 99% white people on that show, right? They don't. At the end of the day, it's like, oh, look at these white people, like never be stabbed. I mean, like even if you take it like a mafia like a story, right? Like, well, look at them shooting people up, right? Glorifying this type of thing.
Well,
right?
a more
like, it never
adequate
happens.
comparison.
Or
well,
Breaking Bad would be a good example.
Game
right?
of
a
Thrones
more-
doesn't
what time
represent
out?
real people, though.
No,
A
but
more
that's why I
co-
said.
wait,
That's
time
why I
out.
said take it. You can make it like a mafia movie or something, right?
Well, no, a more comparative analysis would be between like a song and a poem or something. Because like a story, like a movie or a film or a TV show, those tell a prolonged story. Like you want to chalk it up that like your gang mafia boss managed to gun down 8 people, but since he killed the one senator, he's a hero. That's fucking bad writing, and I'll admit it full out, right? Like we can point out bad writing in stories, songs, and like poems and shit like that. They're condensed forms of media that like have so many different messages and shit that when we analyze them, like you have to go literally line by fucking line, sometimes several times to get the full meaning of the message out because they're not like stories where you can tell it in a prolonged sense.
In regard to like the mafia thing, I mean, I don't know that many white people across the nation really relate to like mafia stories
How
and
many?
like are connected
How
to
many black people relate to gang violence, right? Like, how many of us do that?
that. Well,
A lot of
it's not
people
just
won't be
gang
good,
violence
man.
though, right? It's a lot of these things are about just the life in being in an inner city or just the lifestyle of various people that they grew where they grew up. So
How
there's a
many
lot of
of us relate to that though? I didn't relate to any
So
of
like
that. I've
so
never
like
related to
that's
any of that.
where my issue on the subject comes in play. There's a difference for me between just rapping about your experience and rapping about like what you had to grow up around and glorifying it.
No,
Yeah,
That-
there's a
that-
difference between Kendrick rapping about something and many of the people I've noted rapping about something. Kendrick is able to rap about his history and his time in like the projects and his time in like Section 80 and all that shit, and is able to do it while conveying a message that isn't the same as like say a King Von or a Pooh Shiesty or a Lil Durk or whoever. And like at the end of the day, I think people in chat think they're smart guys by saying like rap reflects the hood. Well, in the same way that we say that about media, like our media like reflects our current environment, it kind of goes both ways. They like to put out what we like to see, and that kind of is a feedback loop in a lot of ways. And it's the same thing happens for rap. And again, it's not going to be every black person that's influenced. However, there are definitely black people that are for sure influenced in these like problem areas that I've already talked about. So like if I could get rid of all that in a day, I think that would be like a positive thing. I don't think that would ever happen realistically.
So we could like
But, like,
censor a call to violence, is what you're saying. Like if the rap involves like an actual call to violence, you would want to censor that, but other things might be okay.
I don't think I would realistically want to censor it unless I was in that hypothetical God position where I could just like Thanos snap all of it.
Right.
But like ideally, I probably would, because at the end of the day, we don't get to see a lot of the violence that goes on. I don't think everyone follows like fucking like Chirac like body count like count ups for the week, like how academics used to have on his channels, like a big like YouTube guy that like covered the the gang beef in Chicago. He would have like weekly segments just about like who's beefing and what's going on, and it would just be like a colossal body count. And we don't get to see that all the time. And 100% of it is not attributed to music, but there's definitely a more like significant point of it that is like related to music, especially when we talk about these specific individuals that make these songs and have people under them that do enact gang violence.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I still think spinning on a block is just inherently dangerous. There are people that get killed in like crossfires of gang shit all the time. Like these are not soldiers. These are literally like 15-year-olds with guns in a lot of cases. So there is an inherent violence to people around them that want to emulate and become like these big rappers.
But I want to shorten, and I think, I think some of what you're saying is actually really good there. But like I want to focus in on like how does rap represent everyone? So like, well, rap is more than one thing, right? But what we're talking about is the most famous parts of it, which are the parts that glorify violence. That's at least one part of it. It also glorifies other things. But like I think, I mean, you all know that like rap isn't like your one-stop shop to understand like the black experience, right? And so if you have people who think that's the case, well, okay, sure, right? But that happens because the dominant culture is in power and they can make those judgments about the rest of us and not care, right? Like we can't make the judgment off of like any of their media as to like what white people get up to. Like you're not allowed to pigeonhole them in the same way. Um, so like, uh, so it's like, well, uh, should we get rid of rap and hip hop to do what? Like,
Okay.
what does it accomplish when we're doing that? Because that dominant society will judge us no matter what. Like if hip hop disappeared before hip hop and rap existed, was there a stereotype of black men being more violent? Yes. Was there a stereotype of black men using drugs? Yes. Was there? I don't name others, right? That hip hop supposedly glorifies, but like those already existed. So if it went away tomorrow, those things wouldn't disappear. Tyra?
So like I just gotta say two things real quick. One, like because like I agreed with you like with what you were saying, Prime, but like inherent unless someone else said it while I was like stepping away for a second fixing the curtains, those are both straw men. I don't think anyone here is saying get rid of rap as a whole. I think like me and Baja Blast Free, since like we're the only ones with a contention, are quite literally saying the glorification aspect, like the new trend. Maybe we should axe that. Rap
Wait.
in whole as a genre, 100.
He said he would get rid of it though. He said if he could
Oh,
snap his
Baja
fingers.
Blast
Oh
said,
yeah,
like,
ideally. if I could
Wait,
see
wait,
my
wait.
hands
What,
up it.
yeah, like
That's
in the
what he said.
in the hypothetical that like he's got like if we're giving him the hypothetical that he's God, like y'all want to argue against that? Okay, I'll drop that point. But like I don't want to like I will make it clear. I don't want to get rid of rap music. Like I think rap music's fire as fuck. Just the glorification aspect. Second, yeah, no, I think that hit both points. Like I think rap music can be changed. Like
We already censor like calls to violence anyway. We just don't do it as a society to rap music. And probably part of that would be like there'd be a lot of
Artistic issues.
Yeah.
eh,
Oh, yeah.
I
That's a
guess
big part of
artistic
it.
issues. But I also think like there would be like the cultural reference and this because it'd be considered like an attack on uh the culture as well, wouldn't it? Like when they say that, like, wouldn't there be people who would say, "Oh, they're just attacking black folk for liking rap"?
Oh yeah, for
Yo,
sure.
no.
It'd be like people who
Do
would say that, right? So like, I feel like that's probably a very sensitive thing to do. But like, I mean, I would personally not care about. Like, I think it would be a good idea to censor calls to violence. I think it's probably the right way of dealing with this type of thing. Like, there's some people who are doing some very and even in video games, like yeah, we shouldn't ban shooters, but there's some video games that are so beyond the pale that they should definitely be like removed from the market, and they often are removed from the market. So I think there is
Often?
an argument to be no, did I say often? I didn't mean often. But like these things happened and they are removed from the market. Like there was some pretty rapey video games that like
They're on the
existed.
Twitch banned list. You can
Yeah, like
you
there's,
can,
there's,
like,
like,
go
there's like an
Yeah.
actual list. Yeah. So like I think you can definitely make the case that there is a precedent for removing things that are just too much.
And to like
So
because I remembered my second point a little bit. Because like I'll say it again as many times as I need to. I'm not saying, and I don't think Baja Blast Freeze is saying that if we get rid of this one aspect of like actually glorifying these negative aspects, that it's gonna completely magically solve the issue. Not at all. To what percentage? I'm gonna take the stance that Baja isn't. I don't know to what percentage. It could be like a really tiny small fraction of a percent, but I'd still want to take that fraction of a percent for where it's at. Right? Like I don't know how much it's gonna
So
affect
Baja,
the
you've
issue.
got the Thanos glove. You've got the glove on your hand, and you have a choice. You want to remove all rap music, or you want to remove the calls to violence. Which one are you choosing?
Perfectly balanced as all things
calls
should
to
be.
violence, but also
Mm.
I gotta clarify my point. So I guess I was just saying rap music when I was talking, but I meant like specifically. I guess I meant specifically to be even more specific, drill shit. I would probably remove that from both the UK and the US if I had the choice. I do think that there is room for softer rap, and I think that time is coming. Although it does come with a lot of other problems, including like promoting drug use. But I do think like rappers like Tyler the Creator. I was gonna say another name, but they're actually kind of canceled. I don't even know. I'm just thinking about Tyler because his new album came out. There are like a bunch of like softer rappers coming out that are rapping about Chance, you know, is actually, I think he's actually a BD. Well, that's back in the day. He's now a God-fearing man. So, you know, we'll remove that gang shit from his past. But just like this wave of like softer internet rappers, like is kind of better for the culture as a whole, I think, aside from like the usual promotion of drug use that goes with it. But like I think rap has room to change. It's just that right now at these two evolutions, like these two paths of rap are they're just kind of happening at the same time, and the more violent one is more dominant right now. Probably because of the history of rap in general, favoring like gangster rap. But there is room for it to change and just go back to normal. You know, an artistic expression doesn't have to do with violence necessarily.
I think there's something we haven't talked about yet, though, where because we keep using the word that glorified, like rap is glorifying violence and misogyny and all these things here too. But I think it's kind of important to look at how certain types of rap are getting promoted. For example, so you're not getting this like the soft rap that we were just talking about promoted. It's not making top 10 on the charts. It's like it's the stuff that's like with the violence and all these things we're saying that are negative to the culture. So I just think that I'm not gonna push back against like there's definitely rap out there that's glorifying some things that are negative, but also isn't there a problem where okay this is what's being marketed? Like there's a whole lot more to rap, like we said earlier in the conversation, than just violence and things like that. So
here's the kicker though. So like I'm saying, these are two split evolutions because like when Tyler the Creator drops, when Brockhampton drops, when Anderson .Paak drop, like they like get on playlists. Like, you know, I'm gonna use playlists as a general like, you know, marker for success because that's what we live in, like the streaming era. Like they do hit the playlist. It's just that at the same time, like the violent rap will also hit the playlist, and it'll just kind of like coexist. You know, if you go to Spotify, actually you see the softer rap on the more generalized like top 10 hits playlists, and you'll see like on the dedicated rap music playlist, there'll be a lot more of the drill shit, a lot more violent rappers on there. So it is like, you know, the music industry is sectioning off these things kind of, but they are, you know, rap is like the most dominant like genre. Like as far as
is it like
so,
white guys kind of deciding what is considered black music and then what isn't? Would
low
that be like
key,
an
a lot of
accurate?
these, because the labels
In
are
a
at the end of the
sense.
day are
Yeah.
in control of a lot of these playlists and a lot of like, you know, influencing who gets on what. So kind of, yeah, it is white guys at the top, like pushing their artists that they've selected. But you know, if you go to the more like black owned labels, like if you look at like Jay-Z's platform, or if you look at like, you know, QC, which is a black owned label, like they make just as many waves as like the, you know, super huge labels like, you know, Atlantic Records and all that. So it is a lot of white guys though at the end of the day pushing what they consider to be the dominant sound.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's lots of things to cover here. One is the fact that the corporations are deciding these things, they're deciding what is popular, right? Like who gets the deals, right? The record deals, right? So like that's, I mean, all is part of it. Before we get to that though, I was just wondering like, so Baja has been saying I want to get rid of drill rap, I want to get rid of the violence, but should we? Pyro was saying, well, it might help like 1 or 2%, right? But like, is the loss in like culture, because it does represent something. It certainly represents.
Can I make a quick clarification on my argument real quick?
Okay.
Not getting rid of violence, glorifying violence.
Yeah.
Getting rid of glorifying violence.
Yeah, that's right.
Specifically that part.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I mean, if you had to pick,
hold on. Let me finish my point.
Sorry.
Let me finish
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is would the loss in those perspectives in that part of the culture, right? Because it doesn't represent everyone's experience. It certainly doesn't represent my experience. I don't think it represents a lot of people's experiences here, right? But would that loss be greater than? Would that impact be greater than anything we could possibly ever gain from having that disappear? Like having a negative rather than a positive, right?
I think the loss of life is like too much to ignore at the end of the day.
But we don't know
like,
how. But we don't know how much of that is actually caused by hip hop and not caused by The actual.
Well, I can when we
So,
could get
like-
specific, I could literally go and look. Like I will do that actually. I think that would be my mission. I would go and look
Oh.
at what rap beefs have turned into real life shit. And if we go to the UK, if we go to like these other places where like they're really grimy with it,
Okay.
there's like direct ties.
I'll make. Well, I'll make the. I'll make.
Hold on. You're saying that you're talking about individual, like, you know, or rappers like shooting or getting shot. I'm talking about like the wider trends in the culture. I mean, like what individual artists do. Like, I'm.
But
far
that's the
less
other side of your argument is that so if we got rid of it,
Huh?
you're asking what would the loss be? The loss would be like individuals that are like rather wealthy, right? At the end of the day, like it's not like I'm trying to think hip hop is good for the culture, as in like it's a thing for people to talk about, people to engage with, identify with, you know, have fun with, like music. But if we're talking about like losses overall, what do we really lose at the end of the day? Aside from that and the personal wealth of these rappers who make this music. So it's either, in my eyes, it's either the loss of life that is caused through music, or it is the wealth that is given to like select individuals, and kind of as a consequence, you know, appreciation that's given to Black culture for producing
Can I
this
ask you a
style of
question?
music.
So, like, hold on.
Disagree with
'cause
this,
I,
though,
I
like-
well, hold on, because like I actually wanted to answer Prime's real quick, because like without going into specifics, I'd say that like we don't really lose much, because like the influence I'm talking about of like actually glorifying these negative traits, right? Like I don't think we really lose much to the culture that's comparable to like what we might gain. Like I take it as the same way I made the previous argument. I don't know which percent. The only addendum is I know it'd be less than what I know we'd lose less than like how much we gain. So like we'd gain more because like we're removing that negative influence. Violence as a whole, we can debate what type of violence you want to like allow into rap music. The glorification, I specifically have a problem with it.
Well, I mean, so I have a problem with the glorification, generally speaking, but I think this is like a false dichotomy. Like, I don't think that you can say, okay, we need to remove violent rap to save lives. I mean, I think there's like other things that we should be pushing for and agitating for to save lives that would have a much greater impact on like gang violence, right? Like gang violence is directly associated with a lack of institutional recourse for making money. But if there's no institutional recourse to make money, you have to go to the black market. Like you have to take a black market recourse to get your money, right? So like there's that. Like that's where the drug trade comes in. That's where like all the other things that are bad come in. So I would agitate for changing that sort of thing, creating institutional recourse in poorer areas of the country, rather than saying, okay, it's the music. We need to focus on the music. That'll like, I mean, like maybe the music would save like one life, right? But like if we, you know, changed how economy works, it would save a lot more lives, and you wouldn't have to attack culture while doing so. Well, that culture at least.
Yeah, this is kind of weird. I don't know if I like the way this is going. It's almost like okay, if there's like a violent video game and one kid somewhere is influenced to do this, 10 kids are influenced to do something violent, which is very small, and that doesn't mean that video games specifically cause violence, just so I'm clear. I'm not making that argument. But if there were just a few people who were influenced that way, a small group of people, I would then argue let's get rid of violence in video games to save, you know, the 5 lives or whatever of these people. That's what I feel like is being argued.
Yeah,
and
so
it
let's
doesn't
set up
make
the
a lot
rules
of
of
sense.
engagement, because I feel like everyone's like forgetting. So this is maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just not articulating properly. If we're talking about, I think Prime's question was, because it's been a little bit. I think Prime's question was, if we get rid of this aspect, which I'm going off of what Pyro Tyrant and I were arguing about, like the glorification of violence. If we get rid of this, how much are we losing versus what we gain, right? Or am I just off base with that being the original premise?
That was what I understood to be.
Yeah, that was the
So
question.
if that's the original premise, what is really on the line? If I get rid of the glorification of violence that is tied to direct actors making raps about glorifying violence, and those rappers, and I mean, maybe I can drum up proof if that's your point. If I can prove that these people have direct ties to violence that also is related to music, like whether it is fuel for making more bars about killing people or robbing people, or if it's, you know, like rap beef that causes two people to get into an argument, the thing that's on the line there are the lives and, you know, the dangers presented from people taking those actions. So if I got rid of that, I would get rid of those consequences of those people doing those bars and shit. So if, like you said, it's a false dichotomy, but at the end of the day, if we're arguing about that specific premise, What do I lose there aside from these
I can-
people committing these
yeah,
actions?
The negative
I'll do
fucking
one. I'll do
influences.
one.
Go ahead, Baha.
So-
Here's what you
Sorry,
lose.
go ahead, Cutsy.
Yeah, here's what you lose. You're restricting art, right? Going back to the video games example, right? You're arbitrarily restricting art. Going back to the video games example, if 10 people die or cause violence because of a result of a video game, do we ban or try to restrict as much as possible the glorification of violence in the video game? If you were set that premise for rap, why doesn't it apply to video games?
Because if I was to make a truly equitable comparison here, when I'm talking about the glorification of violence being removed, I'm specifically again, I guess we have to get more specific. So really talking about drill shit. We already restrict art, so I think that's a false premise. We restrict art every day. You're not allowed to draw child porn. You're not allowed to do a bunch of bad shit. So if we're restricting the glorification of violence, which is a subsection of rap that I'm clearly identifying and pointing out, that's different than just saying this violent video game caused 10 people to go do whatever. Unless it really is that same kind of violent video game that we already put bans on, that we already restrict from being sold. So that's you're making a comparison between my specific argument against rap with a generalized this is a video game that is causing bad.
Well, no, I'll actually argue on your level. If we're taking because me and Baja Blast Freeze are making a very specific argument, not about violence as a whole, but a specific type of glorification of violence. To take your example, for a video game glorifying a specific type of violence that we can make a very accurate historical tie to, you get to play both sides in the Civil War, and both sides glorified, and the Confederates actually glorify holding slavery, or you get to play we have standards in place as of now where we're there are just some things you really can't make. You cannot make a game from the Nazi perspective glorifying fighting for the fatherland. You can't do that. There are very clear reasons why you can't do that, and we may not have legislation on it. If we're talking about legislation, do I think we should have legislation on it? No. Socially though, I think we can all kind of maybe shift our mind focus to be yo, we like rap music, maybe not the glorifying aspect. Yo, we like violence in video games, maybe not the ones that go advert in their messaging saying it's good that you're killing these people. Yes, maybe
Let's take
that.
it one step further.
Hold on.
'Cause
Though. Go ahead. Go
Well, one more. Let's take it one step further because you're right. Video games and art are heavily restricted. What about books? Glorify violence all the time and influence us in ways we couldn't even imagine. Should we ban the glorification of violence in books? Specifically, that exact same scenario could be written in a book and actually has been written in a
So
book.
I'll say it again, Cutsleeves. If we're talking legislatively, just going to the courts and being yo, we want to ban it, no, of course not. If we're talking socially, we kind of already do that socially. When books come out and novels come out and it's very adamant that they're taking a political stance on something and then glorifying violence towards the other side. Yeah, we every side can come out and say, no, that's not really what we go for. When a lefty writes a book about how they're dreaming of a conservative utopia where it's okay to bash their heads in, everyone on both sides is no, fuck that. When the right does it about their fascist utopia of globalism and immigration, we come down even harder and we say, no, that's fucking ridiculous. Right? It's the glorification aspect. If you want to write your alternate history novel about what would happen if a certain set of examples come into play, that's fine as long as you don't glorify it, right? I've read history novels about yo, the Confederacy takes power and they do some really horrible shit. You know what the author never did? Said ever implicated that yeah, they're fucking right. In fact, he did the opposite.
Was it Terry Turtledove by any chance?
Oh, of course
Okay.
it was.
I thought I was I know what you're talking about. That's exactly
of course it was.
That was pretty wretched stuff.
Yeah, and Mad Lad can attest to this. In the book, several
bad.
times when the characters do insanely horrible shit, he tacks on, and they never considered to think that maybe this was just fucking wrong. Maybe if it were maybe they were people, and
You're right.
and it's he's showing the violence, and he's not pulling any stops, but what he's not doing is glorifying the violence. He's not saying damn, we should kill all the Confederates. He's showing from their aspect damn, even though this is a very fucked up war, I wouldn't want to be a Confederate either. These people are being put through a war just the same. There's a way you can show violence without glorifying it. And that's the point I think we're all missing.
Right. So I agree with that conceptually. Like I think that we should I think glorifying the violence is a big problem. I
I don't
all
think
right.
glorifying separates it from the other examples given, because violence is glorified in like Grand Theft Auto and
So
all kinds of
I
games.
I
Like I
kind of
don't.
want to reject the like. I mean, I think I'm gonna go back to the dichotomy thing just a little bit because I'm gonna use an argument that I first heard last night from a very intelligent person who's way more eloquent than me. But I'm gonna try this. I want to reject this lens that we have to choose between the one a remove the glorification of violence from rap culture, and B, the death of people who are innocent, right? Like, I feel like this battle between the two is not necessarily fair because, like, I again don't feel like this glorification of violence would work if there wasn't incentive to be violent to begin with, right? Like,
So,
it's
like, thank you, Mad Lad, and you're finally taking me and Baja Blast Freeze's side. We're not saying this is going to even, like, stop the problem in its entirety, or like even like, like
right.
I'm saying, like, it can stop it a minute.
But
Maybe it doesn't even save a life, but maybe it, like, helps, like, not pushes someone over the edge.
Well, I mean,
Maybe it does something like that.
if it's such a like small change, again, then why are we even agitating for it? Like, why do we even care? Like, what do
Because the
we?
other end, the
Oh,
other
because
thing that's
well,
being
like,
argued with is like, what do we gain from it? I would argue it's an equally small change.
well, like, it's even bigger than that. Like, in the broader conversation, this is an influence on our society, like a media influence on our society. We argue about this type of shit all the time. Like, we're bringing up movies and video games and shit like that. Like, if it were something where it's like not even hiding the fact that in its entire runtime, because like we're taking long elongated forms of media and comparing them to like shortened forms of media, right? If within its entire runtime, a 18-hour video game is doing like nothing but glorifying violence within a society, I would have a problem with that the same way I do if a 3 minute and 50-second song did the same thing, right? And it's the glorification aspect for me. So
I
like when
think.
we so
Oh,
like when
God.
we broaden it out like that, like we do have a problem with this already in society. We're just looking at the media as like different in a way. Like we'd have the same conversation about taking that glorification away from video games if this were the case. And we don't usually.
So, all right. I want to focus on Baja's because Baja had something that like initially. Baja had said something that really initially impressed me and made me almost step back from my point. Almost. I was like right there. I was like on the cusp, the precipice even. And then I was like, but wait. So like I get that there's maybe not much gained from maintaining the glorification of violence in rap, right? Like what do we get? Like maybe a little bit extra history, like 100 years later, like that type of thing. Maybe folks will enjoy it more, etc. But the question isn't necessarily what do we gain versus what do we lose. I guess I'm thinking more in terms of like effort, right? Like how much effort would it take to actually remove the glorification of violence from uh something specific, like just the drill shit from rap, right? Like how hard would it be to do that versus just try to, and like how much value do we get from that effort versus putting the effort in somewhere else, and how much value do you get from that? Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah, and I think that's a good conversation. However, I just want to point out before I answer your question that I was just responding directly to Prime's question, which was posed, I suppose, as somewhat of like the Thanos snap idea. Like, what would, if I did the snap, what would the outcomes be? Would it be worth it? But like, to answer your question, I think that is like is a super tough one. Actually, it's not tough at all. I think it would be a lot more. It would definitely be a lot easier to ban rap music if we're just talking about like what we could do if we had, the right people, at Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever, decide not to put on these people. Although, what we can talk about, like, oh, they make a lot of money off it, so maybe it wouldn't be so easy. But I think the more fruitful thing to do, and what you're alluding to, is to like obviously fix the socioeconomic conditions that cause like the music to go that way. I think that is like something that kind of it is definitely more fruitful, but I think like we're seeing, like I was talking about, there are like softer rappers that are coming out through the advent of like internet music, through the advent of being able to put shit out on your SoundCloud, not have to like hit it big on a label. Like you can kind of get discovered more easier than ever, like in this era. And I think the more attention that's put on like groups like Brockhampton and Tyler the Creator and Anderson .Paak and all these people I've mentioned, is like the biggest antidote to the problem. Because as these people grow larger and larger, I think the tastes of the culture will change. Because in a lot of ways, the drill shit doesn't really affect a lot of people. That's always been my contention. It doesn't. It's good for like the white folk to listen to, but it's not like doing anything at the end of the day, one way or the other, aside from being like your club music of choice. The other shit, on the other hand, I think is like something that can become way more popular and way more influential amongst all people. Because when you're talking about like typical sad boy shit, like dealing with your anxiety and your depression and your feelings and shit like that, that's way more relatable and that's like it's easier to propagate. Like we just saw the death of one of the like greatest of this era, Juice WRLD. Like that was a humongous loss to the community that I think like stretched out to a lot of areas, like not just black people like in the ghettos, but like to the suburb kids too. So just all in all, I think if we promote these people and just have a cultural shift to being like, yo, these people are really good and they're not really doing the typical gangster rap shit, I think we'll have like a better situation, along with the obvious politics of making life better in these like impoverished areas.
Boom. Here's also something to think of. Do we at all care about the people who actually get rich off this type of music? And
No, fuck millionaires. I don't care. Fuck you. You have enough money to
no,
live
no,
on your
not,
ass.
no, not
I
the
like
people.
his point.
Well,
I think
people,
he's gonna say something good.
Yeah.
right. Not the people who like start off as like people who do drill rap don't start off as millionaires. I don't think that's.
Well,
I
you'd
don't
be
think that's the
surprised.
case. I think people start, from where they're set. That's what drill rap is about, right? Rags to riches, right? Specifically, do we not care about the lives that they're impacted from? Because when you say what is a loss, if we Thanos snap this music, they're the loss, right? They're going to be still in their types of areas, and they're not ever going to be, they don't get access to having a way to get out of the areas that they grew up in.
So that's not
No, they could
true.
just
That's
rap without the violence. I
like
mean,
so
they
like
don't,
wait,
without
No,
the
actually,
glorification of violence.
no,
So
like
there's
they
actually something
could
really interesting
hold
here.
up, wait, Mad
because-
Lad, hold on. Like this is insinuating that like all they can do is rap, right? If they're like if we're talking about a Thanos snap where we change it so like this drill rap isn't like incorporated in the top 10 charts, right? Like if this isn't a viable financial future, like the odds of them choosing it go down drastically. They may still choose it, they may still like make that decision to, but like if it's not viable for them and they see it's not viable, maybe they'll go on to something else. Maybe it doesn't have to be in the music career. Maybe they
Wait.
do go on to a different type of rap that's
Wait,
softer.
yeah, you think they're gonna get to put back on two things here. One is like some people do make the big of their bucks, and like some of the best parts of their rap is the glorification of violence, right? That is some of the best parts of some people's rap, right?
It's the
music
best part
work,
of
I
their
agree.
rap.
That's why it sells.
Well,
And
so-
second is like they're not gonna get out of their scenarios by plumbing, right? Like it's specifically rap.
Yeah, they would.
Specifically either
What do you
rap.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
all right,
what?
Yes, they would.
No,
Yeah,
Huxley,
Plumbing?
chill,
That'd be
chill,
great.
like, chill.
I don't want to get into this like pull yourself by your bootstraps like sort of argument thing here. I wanted to actually Cunsley's actually raised an interesting point because I know this guy isn't black, but there's that guy 69, right? He hit it big, he made lots of money, whatever. He gave a ton of his
69.
money. He gave a ton of his money to like his community that he grew up in. And there are folks who remember where they came from, get the money, and invest in their communities. So the question is like how much of that is going on and how much of a loss that would be. I think that would be like kind of an interesting direction.
We
to
don't
go.
know that they would lose that though.
So
Like
we're
they're-
Yeah, let me interject here because this will make it kind of interesting. Although, so like for a lot of the people that make it, I'll take Pop Smoke for example. That nigga was 16 and he had a fucking Bugatti. And you know why? It's because he was born in the Flossie and down there they scam credit cards like motherfuckers. Those motherfuckers will scam the hell out of anything. And a lot of people that make it, a lot of these people that we're talking about that like have made it in like drill rap, they talk about the violence, but also like these people have money. Not a lot of them are poor. And it's not like they're working like honest jobs, like, fucking Boy Scout shit. That's not true. But at the end of the day, without the music, they are relegated to street shit that they've already been doing before they blow up. The blow up of the music, I think, can only be like attributed to like an increased proclivity to being in violent situations. If you're gonna rap about shit, you have to be in the areas to rap about shit.
No, you
right?
don't.
Or you could fake it. That's like real. People fake it. But a lot of these people stay in the areas that they were born in. And a lot of rappers die in the area that they were born in when they do have money.
But
And we can go through the list. You can deny it. And a lot of people do cap. I'm not going to hold
Oh.
you. A lot of people do cap about their raps. But a lot of people stay where the violence is and they die with
well, first of all, like most people don't become rich on this, right? So we know that like a part of the faking it is like faking that like you're flying around on like a jet plane, right? Like that's not a thing that you do. That plane for your music video is rented, right? So is that mansion, so is that car, all that's rented, and you're about to go back to your mama's house, right? Like that's the thing that happens.
I don't think that. Okay, maybe that's true for some of these people, and that's probably the SoundCloud people. But the people that are capping about having millions
Even
are the people that are like working off of advances from their label.
Even
right?
on-
So it's not like they have the money.
No.
In a lot of cases, you're right, but it's not like they're going to their mom's
Well, a
house. All
lot
right,
of-
let's get that.
they're
No,
not
no, no,
like
for-
they're not broke.
No. I'm telling you, for a lot of these people, they don't have like that's shit is rented for videos. Like they don't like the biggest stars, true. Like they have that kind of money, but for a lot of them, just because you see a music video, it don't mean shit. Like it doesn't mean anything in terms of their wealth, right? It doesn't tell you what their contract looks like, right? Like we know that they have
That's
their
true.
So
Right.
like this is the
That's
difference
true, but-
between like betraying, violence and like betraying success. Usually when we portray success in media, it does go to like extremes, right? So like you're right, Prime. You're these people who are like, yo, I'm flying on planes to Paris and France every weekend. Probably most likely are not flying on the plane to anywhere, every fucking weekend. But like, the problem when like it comes to portraying success in media is like we're very rarely to actually portray the negative aspects. Like, yo, I'm better off than I was, but I got a contract label that says I have to like do 18 concerts a year or some shit like that, and like they also take a huge cut of my port. It just doesn't sell as well as like I'm flying a plane everywhere I want and like getting the most expensive champagne.
And
Right.
even
Well,
in Prime,
the
even in
thing
your
is-
example, people they have way more money than like a fucking like $40,000 a year job. Like let's
Yeah.
get that straight. Like it's not
even,
like
even
they're not
if
poverty.
they're not like plane level, they're still like like good house level, right? But specifically, if we're talking about the good rap does or like the good drill rap does, we do have to talk about the aspects of which even if you don't want to use Takashi 69, you can still use like a Jefferson Cole. Like I mean, even like J. Cole like gives millions back to his community. Like people after and if you don't want to consider J. Cole a drill rap, that's fine. We can get into those.
He's really
numbers.
not. I gotta cut you off there.
That's-
He's not.
I mean, he, we can discuss some of his like, because like he does glorify at least drugs to a certain point. But even then, they do give back to their community. So that is something you're gonna lose if you just like Thanos snap away drill rap. And I'll just fight to this point to the end of the panel. Like some of the rapper's best aspects comes from the glorification of violence.
So I would say at that point, like if that's your best aspect and you can't if we're cutting you off right at the stem, I don't see a problem with that, right? Like people are going to find alternate ways to make money, and if these are people who are initially invested in giving back to their community, they will. If not, they probably wouldn't in the first place. But like to the people who have already made it, like if like we Thanos snap this out, right, and you're still in, you have your money, you have your record label. If you're so stale as an artist that you can't shift a little bit to find a new niche, I probably won't feel that sorry for you. Like if you can't keep the money coming in from your supporters by shifting over, if they are only there for the glorification aspect, well then like that I don't really care.
It's
And
not
like
about whether you can shift or not. It's whether you could even make it initially to begin with, right? Like, how are you going to start like, I don't know, rapping about anything that isn't like your life? And not to say that everybody who's into drill is rapping about their lives, but like the folks who do, how are you going to even get started? How do you get the ball rolling?
Oh, yeah, no,
you get
that-
a regular
like-
job, nigga. Like you get a
like
job.
that's what
okay?
I say. Like, and you just skipped
Damn.
over my point. Like, if we're cutting you off at the stem, if you're
Sure,
like,
BJ.
no, like if you're looking to like start a rap career and you're like, man, I really want to get the ball rolling, and like all you can rap about is like, specifically the glorification of violence. I don't care if you don't get like a
You
boot
rap
up.
about how hard it is to get a job in like the
No,
neighborhood.
like yeah, like
Right,
if you're
That's a good. That's
no,
a
but
good
like
topic.
exactly like if you're rapping
Right.
about, like just the violence you live through and you're like not glorifying it, I don't have a problem with that. Like just Thanos snapping the glorification out of violence. One, I don't care if you don't get a chance up because all you can do is glorify violence. But to the people who are already in the industry, because like I'm not going to say take away their wealth and like make it so they never existed. To those who are already in the industry, you need to be versatile enough to like have a discussion with your managers or some shit like that. Maybe get new management and say like, "Yo, markets changed, bro. We need to find a way to keep this money coming in that doesn't include glorifying violence because we won't be able to do that." And if they can't,
This does sound like bootstrap mentality, though, right? Like, oh, you can make it in your own field, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or I don't feel sorry for you.
If
Yeah,
your field
you
doesn't
are.
exist
Wait,
anymore,
wait.
it's not
You,
pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
yeah,
It's
you
get a
already have
fucking
like,
job, dude.
not like if we're talking about the motherfuckers who are already there, and those are the people I'm talking
I'm
about.
not talking about those. No,
You're,
no, no.
you're,
I'm talking about the people who, like, the people cutting the stem off where it like grows, like
yeah,
those
if
people.
all you can rap about is glorifying violence specifically, like I don't think anyone is specifically relegated to like actually glorifying violence. I think there are ways you can learn how to rap about violence.
No, I mean, like you could have. I mean, like people rap their passion, people express their passions, and I think a lot of art is based in passion. And I mean, if you have a passion for violence, that's the direction you're going to go. Not to
Would
say
we
that
say
that's
would
or
would we
not,
say the same about like
but
racism? If your passion is like singing
no,
country
I'm
music
not.
about
Look, hold on.
racism, we're okay with
I'm
that?
not.
Like
I mean,
glorifying racism, not even like, yo, my grandpa grew up in the South and he was, but like actually being like, yeah, I'm a KKK
okay,
member and I'm like racist.
so glorifying
That's a
prejudice
good.
versus glorifying violence. I mean, like I get the point. Like glorifying violence is
No, and I'm saying this because keep in mind the topic wasn't initially just about violence. It was also about things like misogyny and
Sure.
homophobia. So like when I draw this comparison, it wasn't mentioned in the question, but those are two, like racism is something that like we
Right.
just look down in society, and I don't think like it's inherent that someone rap
Well,
about in a positive light about these things.
Just
I'll
think
give
of
you
all
your
the
answer,
poor
right?
people who haven't become millionaires because they can't rap about being KKK members. We feel so bad for them. Are we concerned that they
I'll give
can't
you
put
the
the
answer
money
you
back
want,
in the
right?
trailer parks? Like, I don't really think like that's a concern, and it shouldn't really be a concern for anybody.
No,
You
no,
know,
no.
like,
I'll give you the answer you want because, like,
okay.
and this is something I do want to shift to, but like in rap battles, right? Cold style, like King of the Dot rap battles. There are like just racist people, and they make it pretty big off of just like being the racist stereotype. I'm a utilitarian, right? If that racist person makes millions and gives back to the community, and that good outweighs the harm they do by spreading their racism, then I wouldn't restrict it.
Yeah, all right. So I'm overloading here because I want to agree with Pyro so bad right now, right? Like I totally get what he's saying, but I also get what Cut Sleeves is saying. Oh man, this is someone save me, Baja.
Yeah, I can talk and
Fuck.
save you. I'll
Oh, time
jump
cuts.
in
Okay,
here.
good.
I don't know if I'm gonna save you, like I'm gonna back you up or anything, but like, okay, we keep talking about like Thanos snapping and to solve the problem, and this is good to like identify like symptoms and things like that that maybe we think are the cause of this. But like, okay, I think more importantly is maybe this isn't that interesting of a discussion because maybe we'll all agree is just the symptoms that created the music to begin with. It's like if people are consuming it because people are relating to it, and the people who are relating it to it the most are then inspired to cause violence, and that's kind of what I think we've been getting at, then it seems like we need to remove the ability for people to relate to that, because I can't relate to it because of how I grew up. Okay, so I can't. What are you
No,
pointing at?
I'm agreeing it. I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay,
agree
yeah.
with you.
I
I'm
don't
shaking
relate
his
to
head.
it because of how I grew up. So there would seem to be that there would need to be things that we do to change what people who are being exposed to it and acting violently, what their life circumstances are that are causing that. And some of that would be like war on drug type stuff, poverty type stuff, and we can go.
Prime, what's your
Now,
disagreement on
go
that
ahead,
premise?
Prime.
Because you're
You
wrong,
agree with
Prime, but I'll let you go up, but you're wrong.
You're wrong.
Got him.
I don't agree that the music necessarily causes violence outside of like of what Baja was pointing to, like different rappers
Yeah, that's
getting
what I'm
into
talking about.
arguments. But if that okay, so if that's all we're talking about, then like oh sure whatever. I mean like
Those are the lives that we were wanting to save with the Thanos snap.
yeah,
You know?
so
Those
no,
are the
no,
ones
no,
we were
that's the
talking about.
lives that Baja kept bringing up, right? What
Yeah,
I kept
he was going to
talking,
Thanos snap. Okay.
sure. What I was talking about was like systemic violence, right? Systemic violence in the community, because that's the claim. No one's ever making a claim that like people within like who are doing gangster rap, right? Like didn't die from these things, right? Like didn't like people weren't getting shot. No one ever made that claim. No, the claim was always that's used against hip hop is that well that's why Chicago is the way it is. Right? Like that's like the bigger claim. Like, oh, that's why black people can't get themselves together. I mean, look at them with this rap music and glorifying them. And that doesn't just come from outside of the black community. That comes from inside as well, right? You'll have you know, respectability politics kicking in from the black members saying, well, you know, it's this rap music. That's why our community, your neighborhood looks that way, and my neighborhood doesn't. You know, it's because of that rap. So that's the more interesting conversation rather than do individuals get killed within the music industry. People die from all kinds of things within the music industry, like also like drug overdose, right? We have other like not just rap, but like other forms of music glorifying drugs, and we have artists dying all the time. Now, does that mean that we should necessarily take out talk of drug use or glorifying drug use? I'm not exactly sure, but like my issue is like is that raising the amount of drug use in the overall society, right? Or is the drug use that we see more easily explained by other factors like socioeconomic factors?
I think we can all agree here that, like, you know, because like the way the question was worded, it was focused on rap. So like, I apologize that, like, you know, if I took it the wrong way, but like, yeah, I'd agree fully that, like, yeah, a lot of the issues that we actually see with the black community, that whole idea that, like, you know, it's the way rap is the way Chicago is, it's fucking bullshit. It's garbage, right? There are systemic issues that have been at play longer than rap has been a genre of music, like I said before, that we can trace back to fucking 1865 and beyond. So like that idea is fucking garbage. To what extent, I'll say it again, I don't know to what extent taking, you know, that aspect out of rap music will help. I honestly don't. But like, if we're talking about what the causes are themselves, it is 100% ridiculous and stupid even to try and blame it on a single genre of music that's been around less than black people have been in this fucking country. Get over that. Like, just get over it. There's issues that have been prevailing since the beginning.
Yeah, I take umbrage, Prime. That was not the initial claim, because obviously, if this was the question, if it was about removing systemic violence, I don't think anybody here would say that removing
like
rap.
if the question was like, is rap music causing systemic violence, I would have unironically said no. But like when we're talking about like some type of features like misogyny and homophobia and whether they can influence some of that within like the broader community, I'd say yes to that. But like, is it the cause of it root sale whole? Of course not. That's ridiculous.
But
Like, and the people who believe that are just even more ridiculous.
this actually
We had this
was
conversation before
I-
with someone.
This
when I was initially hearing the conversation, I thought it was about the community. I didn't think it was about these like micro
yeah.
things. That's why I was like, I kept trying to like branch it out into like
Same
a
here.
larger community
Yeah.
type thing.
No, but that's
Um,
why I clarified in the beginning. I was saying we're talking about this specific
No.
aspect, and it's only affecting the small population. No one had a problem.
I know, no, hon.
Not
I
wrong.
kept trying to. All right, whatever. It doesn't matter. But like,
Well, even if you did, I think it's the obvious answer that no one thinks that's true.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
fair, the question
No,
did
I
say
agree.
is it did ask is rap damaging the community? So
Yeah.
like,
No, I mean, I thought
kind
the
of
question was that's why I
No,
thought.
like
I
the
thought we were talking about-
community. Like when I think the community, I think like on a more individual level. Like when I think systemic issues, like that broadens
when
it
you
a
think
little
of the
bit.
community, you think of the individual. Good work.
Yeah, like when I think of
Good
yeah,
work
when
on
I
that
think
one.
of the community, yeah, when I think of the community, I think of my community. I think of like Buffalo, New York. I think about the people I know, the city, the streets and shit that I've been to. I
Yeah.
think of my community.
Yeah.
Well,
and-
to be fair though, Prime, earlier I did talk about the community, and then you were dismissive of it and said that you weren't part of the community or something.
No. That's okay. Oh
I-
my god.
And then the
All right, let's
conversation went back.
Oh my god. All right, whatever. I don't care anymore.
I was gonna
so-
say I had this.
like- So okay, so we talked about mostly spent our time talking about violence, but I want to expand it into misogyny of the time remaining on this topic. Like, so is there a rap that we can see that becomes popular? All right, so we can definitely see rap without it misogyny. We have rap that does that, right? We have hip hop that is more, I guess, inclusive. It's like a weird word to use in hip hop, honestly. But we have rap that doesn't necessarily do that. However, uh, could we see that as ever actually being more dominant? Like that doesn't do massage, it doesn't do the drug use, right? That is just overall more now you can do all kinds of things, like you can glorify yourself, talking about, well, I was gonna say one, talking about the money, but then I was gonna say, well, then, how many women have you had sex with, right? But that kind of plays into the misogyny in and of itself, right? To say that, like, I slept with all these women, and then these women have value because they are like a notch in my bedpost. Like that's, I guess that in itself is part of the issue. So yeah, can we see a better form of hip hop?
Oh,
I mean,
Too many
sure.
things rhyme with bitch for misogyny to ever go away. So that's the starting
So
point.
the shock value, I think, is what sells, right? Like if you have a song about like something like happy or go lucky, it's not going to get as much renown as WAP, right? Going back to your point about like folks in the Black community believing this stuff, I literally had this conversation, by the way, with someone who basically claimed that WAP was responsible for gun violence, things like WAP. Like it was like the ridiculous thing.
The WAPs cause gun violence?
That's a
Wet ass
weird one.
pussy
Songs like
calls
WAP, right? Like just like talking about like sex and drugs and guns,
Some
etc.
wet
That's
ass
why,
pistols.
right? Exactly. Like that's why gun violence happens.
I think
And
that's
it was
always
like
convenient because then if it's a problem with hip hop, that means it's not a problem in broader society. That means I have to do nothing. It's all black people, and it's their fault, and I don't have to do anything.
well,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, I
that's
know.
why they're
Yeah,
saying this.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was just ridiculous.
yeah.
It's ridiculous. But so I think there's definitely something to that. Like I think there is like this sort of desire, like it's like this separation, like I'm better than this sort of mentality that goes into this characterization of what rap is. They look at like the worst examples of rap and say this is what rap is, when rap is like way more than the misogyny and the violence, et cetera, right? But then again, and like I don't know if so, like Cardi B is writing songs like WAP. Like, does that make her misogynist in like herself, like in a sense? Like is she like
Who?
attacking her own gender by doing this? Is this like
Sorry.
It seems like it's an exception, honestly. Like
is
you
it?
don't. I mean, do we have any other examples of songs like WAP, like where it's like,
Yeah,
because it feels like this song is not like it doesn't
It's pretty
strike me
special,
as
isn't it?
misogyny.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, if we're
don't-
talking about general WAP-ish songs, like WAP is a hit in itself, right? It's a different kind of hit. But there's tons of like one of the big conversations in the hip hop at large is how women are kind of running hip hop right now, specifically because of the way they rap about women's issues. Rob, you're not. What are you doing, man?
I mean, I'm saying
Megan
that
Thee
there's.
Stallion, Cardi B, Lakia, Coiler Ray. There's like so many
No,
women that I can name that are
You
running rap
named,
right
was it 4 so far?
You want me to? I can go on.
Keep going.
I can go
Keep
on.
going.
I gotta look up the list because I don't remember everybody.
My point is, the only point that I'm trying to make here is that I would like women to be running more hip hop. I want women more in more leadership positions, both in like in front of the mic and behind the mic. I'm not sure it's behind the mic, but anyway, I want them to be to do all of that. I just don't know if the are at this point. I wish that was the present, but I'm just
So they're not
convinced.
the dominant.
Yeah.
They're not the dominant people, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of the women that are in rap are like superstar status, and the ones that make it are like far outclassing their male counterparts. For example, DaBaby and Megan Thee Stallion like came up at the same time, I think around 2 summers ago. Like they were both on their blow up and they're both doing numbers. Some would argue that like they're pretty equal, but Megan Thee Stallion has leveraged so many like hits with Nicki Minaj, with Cardi B. Like she has made a name for herself that is like way bigger than probably what DaBaby has done. As far as like, commercial like placements, as far as like getting your name out there and like being a big star. And it's because precisely they rap about themselves and about, taking men's money and doing like things that might be misogynistic if we generalize it to most women, but because a woman is saying it, it comes off a different way.
Well, is it misogynistic for her to celebrate like the sex that she's having though? Like, I
It's
guess
not
that
just the
is,
sex that she's having, and it's not just about
Isn't-
like having
actually-
sex. It's about
actually
taking
look
money
for-
from men. It's like about like getting men to spend on you. Like being like the bitch that like takes other like girls like women or like take other girls men and shit like that. I think that could be seen as misogynistic, especially if you see like a male artist try to spin that a different way, right? Like
male artist spinning it like, hey, I like get to have whoever I want, etc., etc. Like I see it. I
I
don't
think
know if I. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think the biggest problem here, like when we're talking about misogyny, like for me at least, it comes down to like the objectification. Oh fuck.
But I think that this song WAP specifically is like flipping around like the tradition of, okay, well,
Right.
if a dude has sex with a lot of women, then he's
Yeah.
he's that guy.
He's
then like
Superman.
yeah, but then if it's a woman doing it, then there's a problem. But then WAP is kind of like changing it around and said like, okay,
Yeah.
like I'm the shit. Like this
Yeah.
is me. Like
Like
I
that's
think it's a good thing. It's like I think it's a better direction to go in. I don't know if it's perfect, but I think that it's overall more positive than negative. So
that's why I brought in the fact that like it seems to be like the objectification issue, because like just having women in videos, I don't object to that at all. Like you want to have like women background dancers, that's fine. For me, it's like when when it's talking about like how they're just bodies in the bedroom, and like you tell them to get out afterwards, or like you just go out and you buy a bunch of women and shit like that, right? Like that's a bit of a problem. Like WAP, yeah, it took that and it kind of transformed that a little bit. Another example I could think of where they like, just had male eye, this dude had male eye candy laying around, like Lil Nas X, like one of his biggest videos, like I forgot what the name of it was, but like it was really popular a few months ago, and it was just like, yeah, half of it was like him twerking on Satan and like,
Montero, Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, Call Me by Your Name, like just like dudes twerking on Satan and like pole dancing and shit, and like yeah, that shit, like I'm okay with that type of stuff as long as it's not like completely objectifying and like maybe it's meaning or something. So like in that sense, I would be okay with it. Maybe it's just me, but like I would pay attention to the lyrics, and it's like if they're just like heavily objectifying the women, yeah, probably not. If it's like a sexual liberation song, or like you're taking pride in your wet ass pussy and shit like that, I'm okay with it. If you're just having female background dancers or shit, like yeah, be tasteful. But for me, my taste, but like yeah.
because we have this weird cultural thing going on. It's been the thing for a long time, but it's where women like anytime a woman is seen as sexy or attractive, like she's wearing specific clothing, she's wearing a short skirt, she's wearing this, or she's showing cleavage, whatever. It's like, oh, she's doing this to appeal to men, as opposed to her being able. Maybe that's just what she likes. Like it's one of those things that I think kind of needs to get turned around. I think the way that the trend with the music right now, like sounds like WAP, I think that kind of helps out with that. It's like it's one thing for men to be looking at women and objectifying them, but then also by objectifying them, you're putting them in a box where it's like, okay, you can only be attractive so men can have sex with you. Like it's, if that makes any sense.
And like that's the objectification with the industry, just like and this is media as a whole, where it's like, yeah, if you're doing anything remotely sexy, it's because you're trying to attract a man. Like, and it's one of those like a station we were talking about with like violence. It's not something that starts with rap music. Not rap. Yeah, it's not something that starts with this genre of music. It's something that pervades the entire society.
And I, for one, think it's actually a good thing that women are taking over. Like, there's the City Girls, there's Rhapsody, there's Megan Thee Stallion, there's Cash Doll, there's Young M.A., there's Tierra Whack. I can go off and name a bunch of people that maybe they're not all of them, but a few of them are super mega stars. But even the ones that aren't super mega stars are like given a lot of credit in hip hop for like having actual impactful bars, doing like music that is like really popping off in the scene, like in the streets. They're doing good club music, and they're just also just like a lot better wordsmiths because they don't have to rely on the same like tired stereotypes other rappers like have been relying on for like fucking decades, right? So I do think there is a shift towards women, getting better at rap than men, like Doja Cat, like there's so many women that are good at rap, and I think that's such a good thing for the space right now. I think it doesn't defeat the misogyny at all, precisely because like big male rap artists are still doing the same things that they've been doing forever. And at the end of the day, to a lot of people, when you have raps that are just about like fucking men, to a lot of people in the space, I should say, in the hip hop space, when you have raps that are still about fucking men and like taking their money from a female perspective, it doesn't exactly, erase any kind of previous misogyny that may be there. Yeah, someone in chat said Snow the Product, she's fire. Like all these people are like really good, but not erasing misogyny by any means.
Too good.
Who?
Rico?
Yeah, Rico Nasty. Oh my god,
Too
dude.
good, too good, too good.
It's just fire. She has a kid too. Like that's like a single mom in rap right now that's running shit. I think that's a pretty big change if we look at rap's totality over the years. That we have someone like Rico Nasty with a fucking kid rapping about smacking a bitch today and thanking God that she doesn't have to do it.
But how about the wait? So are any of you guys familiar with like rap battles like King of the Dot like style like just straight
Just battle rap?
Yeah.
Yeah, like battle rap. Do you guys think that that's like because like all like if you think drill rap is bad, like literally 100% of every single bar is just glorification of violence. Like I mean, you could just go any
see,
like
I think it's better. Hold on, I'll address that specifically. I've talking about the YouTube channel King of the Dot, right? Where they have these.
yeah, like but there's more like grind time and there's like
Yeah,
a lot of,
Yeah. Well, okay. So I've seen that channel. I used to subscribe to that one for years, but like I was like not impressed with like the rap battles because most of it was just like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck your mom and like I'll smack you up. It's like it was boring. Like it was completely uncreative. And actually, this is something that we didn't bring up at all, right? Because all right, so yeah, most of it I just found like very uncreative and very repetitive. But then there were a few rappers who like were just like broke the mold, right? And didn't involve violence, didn't involve sexuality, right? And controlling women, right? Didn't involve any of that stuff. They just like looked at their opponent and then they came up with something like in a way that I can't do. But like, and like they tore them to pieces, right? You could do that, but I feel like the violence and I feel like the misogyny, especially, right? Like it limits people's imagination, right? It's an easy thing to do, right? It's like
money.
It's like the N word, right? In hip hop. No, right? Like
No,
people
you're
trying
right.
to.
Oh yeah, I'm
rap
agreeing.
the lyrics, yeah, right. Like they'll rely on the N word to fill in where like their creativity lacks.
And
So that's why, yeah, exactly. So I think it actually can do damage to the wider hip hop culture, right? We could have a more expansive creative hip hop if we didn't rely so much on the violence and the sexism and all that other stuff.
You're hitting
I
exactly
actually-
on the rap debates of the century, man. Like the
So-
conscious rap, the lyricists versus like the track rappers and the mainstream people. Like this is not a new topic at all. This has been a thing forever, and I think everyone tacitly acknowledges that's the fact. Like we still enjoy that music because it slaps, and a lot of it is the beat nowadays. That's why trap is so big because the beats just hit hard. But at the end of the day, the greats that are lyricists, the Kendricks, the J. Coles, the Jay-Z's, the Nas's, like all these people like are still seen as the goats of rap, precisely because they're able to have raps that may still be misogynistic or you know, be a little bit lazy in some ways, but they like bar for bar are far better than the rest of the chaff on the bottom of them, right? So like there is an appreciation for having outside the box raps. It still isn't separate from misogyny wholesale, but there's a lot more songs I feel like from these lyricists, from conscious rappers that don't have to be every bar is like nigga this, nigga that, and like I fucked your bitch and all that shit. Like it doesn't have to be that way, and the culture kind of recognizes it a little bit.
So like I'll address like the point of battle rap specifically, like to Prime's point. Thank you so much for making that point. Like I don't have to go on the first half of my rant now. The second half is like when we're talking about battle raps, one thing that I enjoy a lot more and like that like it seems like a lot of other people enjoy a lot more is like instead of like yo I fucked your mom and then I shot your dad and then like I took his money, it's about the fucking flow, right? If you can string together like a nice wordy fucking insult and it flows properly, like you can pretty much do anything with that, like without having to rely on violence, misogyny, or homophobia. Like I've watched battle raps talk about like, you know, how they took their grandma for a nice walk. And they completely won and like, oh, I took my grandma for a nice walk and like I'm only here on weekends because that's my day off from like volunteering at the soup kitchen. And it's like, bro, where's the violence? And then like the dude wins because like how do you combat that with like, yeah, well I shot your grandma. Like, really? You shot Nana? She baked cookies for, you know, the kids on the week. What?
But like to address the chat because like chat's like but like so we do have to acknowledge that there are some like dime a dozen like good battle rappers. Like Daylight's a good battle rapper who like doesn't just talk about guns. I like DNA, Charlie Clips, like those people are good, like unopposed. like those are dimes a dozen. Like 99% of like battle rap
So-
is literally just gun bars recycled. And
you
like
know what you do? You know what you do, Cut Sleeve? Since you're a fan, right? When you tweet about like, yo, this man got bars, you put up them nice rappers instead of like them violent rappers. Like you may still be a fan of them, but like take the time to tweet about like them nice wholesome rappers a little bit more.
Diz, okay. Disaster is like he's a gun rapper, but he is fire. He's fire. Hitman Holla, fire, straight fire. I mean, like I could tweet about nice, good rappers, but like most of them already signed on to like what's the new show? Wildin' Out. Like all good battle rappers just like went to that show.
Yeah, Wildin' Out is a good space for them too. Like Wildin' Out is what I think Prime wants, and kind of like just generalize. Like this is like the kind of like space that you want raps to be at, where it's like this was, aside from Cannon's fuckery, aside from what happened with that, like that is the place where I think a lot of people like got their rap from. Like, and it's like a commercial TV thing, and it's kind of lighthearted. There are hard bars in there, but not everything is like so cutthroat and not friendly for TV. And it still did numbers.
Yeah.
A lot of it's star power because they got people on there, but like that is, I think, an idealized spot of rap that I want to see propagated more, like more Wild and Out style shows.
And I'm not saying that. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that like there's no space for the violence, right? Because I guess if you've strung together my arguments like throughout our time here, that you might see that I'm going back and forth. I don't think that the violence necessarily has to go. One, I think if it is going to go, it's got to go for a good reason, not because like white people will like us more. They won't. It's just not going to happen. That's not going to be a thing to help like bring together the races, right? It's to get rid of rap. So like if it has to go, let's do it for a better reason than that. But like I think that one, it certainly doesn't have to be as prolific as it is now. That the violence, the misogyny, all that stuff, right? The homophobia and the misogyny, that could just fucking go. I don't fucking need that at all. I don't need it at all. But the violence, certainly, I think there is an aspect of life that is reflected in it, and I think there's something worthwhile there. But even then, like I've said before, it limits us, right? Because like those conscious rappers, I hear some of their lyrics. I'm like, wow, like amazing. I haven't heard of this, right? There's like a breath of fresh air when I hear those. And so like I want more of that. I want rap and hip hop to be all the things that it can be, because I think it can be so much more than it is. That's my point.
So like I agree fundamentally with you, like violence wholesale. Just that little half that like glorifies it. I think the same with like this is just where like I come down to same with anything. Like if you're glorifying the shit, like committing violence and shit, like I don't want that in my media. If we got a video game that's like 3 hours of like, yeah, it's a good thing you go down, tear down the fucking government or some shit, yeah, or like a book series, like I would condemn it just the same. But violence wholesale, yeah, there's a place for it, like wholesale in like every genre.
I have an interesting proposition for Prime though. If you don't want the homophobia, I think we could. There's probably a lot. I don't think like labels let like a lot of rappers say the F slur now. I think a lot of labels do crack down on that, where that wasn't the case like not even that long ago, maybe like 5-10 years ago. But like the misogyny, like if you're against misogyny, I'm against violence. Against misogyny is like you're cutting out way more rap than I am. I think at the end of the day, I think that is like so intrinsically linked to like gangster rap culture that like you would have to wipe the fucking slate. Like that's a harder ask than violence by far.
I think you're not wrong there. I think okay, so this is something I was touching on before, but like we didn't really dig into like what counts as misogyny, right? So like is it misogynistic to want to be using women as a prop there, like as like for your status, right? Like, is that misogynistic? I think some people would say so, right? But let's say okay,
Yeah.
let's say we'll keep that because this is
Got to keep objectification, y'all.
There's gonna be
like,
a tough cut, right? Like,
objectification stays, but like, let's see what's getting put out.
Yeah, right. So like, okay, so we'll objectify, all right. And women can objectify us, but even then, maybe we can recognize that like when women do it, it's not the same as when men do it, right? Because women like their whole lives are being objectified for their bodies, right? And then putting it in a song doesn't even out the playing field. So there's that. But
Well, that's like all music anyway, right? Like there's a lot of music that just has the objectification regardless of the genre.
It's everything.
okay,
Movies,
Like
books,
okay, so
everything.
Rap is a different level though. Rap, I think,
Hmm.
I don't know. I think like really calling women bitches, like actually doing that is pretty misogynist. But that is like the baseline. Even so far as where like these women rappers that we're talking about, they use it the same way. Of course, that's a different context. But at the end of the day, we're really trying to get at the issue of like labeling women as like this object. And in the context of rap music, even if you're a woman, I think that's probably a bad thing.
I don't think it's
Probably.
I don't think
I
it's a
don't
different.
think so at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's a different context at all. Is that what you were saying, Cut Sleeve?
No, completely opposite side. I don't think it's sexist at all. I
Oh.
think if we go back to like lived experience, I think this is literally actually some rappers' experience. I think like, I mean, I don't actually see the bedroom, but like they literally just pay for women. Like this is not a glorification at all. It's literally their lifestyle. Like, I mean, you
I
guys
still
like
think it's a misogynistic lifestyle
Yeah.
because I think there's a clear difference. Like, there's so many bars about just like fucking a bitch and throwing her out, like
Yeah.
doing this.
Right, that's literally their
I
lifestyle.
think that's real, but like it
I
doesn't
mean, you
make
can
it
have
not.
I mean, like it could be your lifestyle. Yeah, like I think it is like a misogynist
So like
lifestyle. It's not-
we get into the discussion about like how we portray it again, right? Like, you can say like, yeah, like wake up every day with a different woman, like, but then like what's that next bar? Is that next bar and like, yo, and I'm gonna keep doing it because it's fun, or is it like, how about how it might have a negative impact on your life? There's certain ways you can take
well,
stuff.
for
I
doing
wa-
it, etc., etc.
I wouldn't want that either. I want that either because I don't think
This-
promiscuity is necessarily a bad thing, right? So I don't.
Well, no, I'm not saying. I'm just like using. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
using
yeah.
the like
Yeah, yeah.
extremes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
like that's the other extreme. Like there's a middle.
Yeah, but so fuck, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah,
Like,
you were
it has
talking
to be
about
respectful,
bitches
I
and
guess, right?
using the terms like bitches and hoes, right? And
Yeah.
I would say that those two things are linked, right? That it's less that women love those terms, right? And love being referred to as those terms. It's that women were taking it back, right? They were taking it back from the people who were using it all the time. And in hip hop, it was being used against them all the time. So like, no, I'm a bad bitch, right? Like that became the thing, right? So I'm gonna focus on that instead of letting this being used as a slur against me. I'm gonna own it, right? So I don't think those two things are like can ever be separated in terms of the context.
Here's the thing about that though, like this goes back to the context of rap as a whole, right? So I think if women were to truly do that, like take back the word, like take back bad bitch, take back bitch, whatever, you got to do it isolated from everybody else. Because what I see a lot and what happens a lot is that when a female rapper is paired with a male rapper, the male rapper is talking the same way about like fucking bitches and hoes and shit. And the female rapper is doing her thing. It's kind of like it's like school prom where you have like the girls on one side, the boys on one side. Like they're both doing their own thing. But like, I think the context of that is just not good in a rap perspective. I think if you're just doing it, it kind of only adds to like calling women bitches and whores. Even if men aren't supposed to do that, like I think that's what happens. Because I don't think men really understand when women are trying to take it back. And if they stay in the greater context of rap, where that's like the common vernacular, I feel like it kind of loses effect in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and we also like made the point earlier that like even though we can name like some of the women dominating rap right now, it is still kind of male dominated field, and like that like type of mentality going around cannot be positive. Like I would be surprised if like that being put on stage as much as it is like providing any good to like the inner rap community and then like the people who listen to their music, especially when it comes to like, yo, maybe try out a woman music. Well, all you're hearing about is how bitches ain't nothing but hoes and tricks in the rap songs, right? So why would I give a female rapper my chance or my money?
I have a question. So if we're talking about misogyny in rap music, and we're talking about how this is affecting people's perception of women, would if you concede that how you rap about women or how you present women in rap is going to influence how people view women, then couldn't you say that how black people are portrayed in rap could influence how people perceive black people outside of those communities too?
Oh yeah, no, I did. I tried to make that point, but then like it was like, white civility politics, right?
I was more directing that, I think, toward Prime, actually, because I think he was talking about how white people were just gonna, have their racist views towards black people anyways, and it wouldn't really help. Um,
So if you're asking,
if we changed rap, that is.
so okay, so I'm saying that if you're saying, let me try it again. If you're saying that media has an effect on society, then certainly absolutely does. My point was that the reasoning should not be the goal of changing white people's minds, because if a white person is going to be racist to black people, right, then they're going to be racist, right? Like that there are so many other messages within white society that denigrates black bodies, right? That says that we are less than. And if you're already susceptible to those, right, well then hip hop is certainly one of those, could be one of those, right? Like, well, look how they act there, right? And I guess black women are like all promiscuous. I mean, look at them shaking their asses there. But if you took that away, once again, before all this happened, before hip hop was the thing, and before rap music was the thing, were black women exoticized? And were they thought as being more promiscuous? Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm saying,
So like,
taking it away. Now you can say that it's making it worse. Now, fine, I'll give you that, right? But I don't think, at least in my opinion, that it's enough of a reason to appease white people, to be a reason to get rid of it. Is my point.
so like
So
I
could
could
the same
make,
arguments be thrown at misogyny, though?
yeah,
Right? 'Cause I could
exactly
say
the
the same
same.
things about misogyny.
So I'm not doing that to appeasing white people. I think to be
No, the
Using
argument
women,
wouldn't.
I guess.
Yeah,
Right?
the argument would be that you're doing this to appease women, right? We could say literally everything you just said about like racism. Yeah, us changing this, it's not going to change it like out hard, like die
Misogyny
hard
existed
incel.
before rap music.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
so there's like a really big difference here, though. Like the difference isn't like you're trying to appease one group or another
the
in
argument was never
direct
that.
sense. Like we're talking about respect, right? So if there's like tracks that are out there that are disrespecting women, then those tracks should be removed because it's offending, you know,
Well,
women. Versus
well,
what we're talking about when we were talking about the violence, it wasn't like we weren't talking about disrespecting black folks because there's violence in the tracks, right? Or disrespecting anybody. It's just violence, which there's no respect issue. There's no degradation of a person. When a person hears these tracks and they think, wow, this guy is a huge prick for saying these things about women, and they feel terrible and they hate the fact that they live in a culture where this is happening, I think something like that should be removed to make that person's life better so they don't have to have that experience on a regular basis, right? So it's like two very different things.
Let's go cut save. Then I'll answer the
like,
question directly, but cut save.
I like this like discussion is based on the premise that like say someone like pays you to like twerk in a dance video and like you get your bag that way. I mean, it's based on the premise that that's like a bad thing or should be demonized, or if you portray someone like that, that's inherently disrespectful to them. I think if you want to dance in a video, get your bag, and that's how you make it, I think that's fine. And I
Not
think
about the
Oh
dance.
wait, we
Not
can
about the dancer whatsoever. It's about the
message it
representation.
sends.
It's about the it's about an artist saying, "This is not a person. This is an object."
So
This
Yeah,
is-
like it's about the
that's
representation. Like we can
respect.
we make
that
the
makes more
same
sense.
we make the same
makes-
judgment when we look at like characters portraying like a different character of a different race. Like we'll say like, yo, this is a really bad representation, and then we'll talk about like, well, like they just got paid a bunch of money, they're doing a job, right? Yeah, they did. They did make their bank. You're an actor, cool, but holy shit, is it still bad representation?
yeah,
Like the issue is the
That makes sense.
representation.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense.
So
That makes
I want to jump. Sorry, were you gonna say something? Backlash? Was that you? No. Okay,
Oh, no,
sorry.
no.
I was gonna jump on something something similar, right? That when it comes to of women in these videos, I was watching this great YouTube channel by this young feminist, black feminist. Her name her name isn't this, but like it's called For Harriet, and her name isn't Harriet. I don't know where the name comes from, but whatever, right? But she's been blowing up recently. She's just been exploding. But she did a video on wet ass pussy, right? She did a video talking about that, and I think, and this has been a while since I saw it, so if I'm misquoting her, then I do apologize. But I think her point was like, well, originally I would have supported this, right? Like, you know, like, hey, it's like these women taking control of their own sexuality, right? And like, well, this is what I'm going to do, and you know, I choose to make myself viewed in this way, like saying that my promiscuity is not a negative thing, right? But then she like pulled back, and again, if I'm misquoting her, then I apologize. It's like she went on to say that, well, we can't like divorce it from the larger context, right? That the choice to be promiscuous on these videos, one, does in term like play into stereotypes, but also like it's in the context of a music industry that demands that of women, right? Just like how with like Britney Spears, right? Back in the day, you know, she was dressing provocatively and people were blaming her for that, but like the music industry was also saying, well, you got to dress this way, right? So like you can't divorce it from those two things, and as you consider that, then it still is toxic, right? Like that bit of representation, especially since it's all we get, right? It's not as if we have so many different examples of black female representation within media, right? Where this is just one aspect, right? Well, some people want to be promiscuous within the music industry, right? No, it's kind of all we get, and that's, yeah.
So like I think like this is a really big thing, right? I'm like, cause like cut sleeves. I think I get what you're trying to say, like, and I want to make it clear. I am not blaming the women for making they bank any way they can in this industry. I'm blaming the industry for always having this be the role. Like I equate this to like, you know, when we did like really racist movies featuring black people in the 30s. I'm not gonna shit on them for getting their bank, but holy shit, did every single role have to be like a fucking stereotype or an objectification thing? That's the thing I have a problem with. The studios are at fault, not the women themselves.
Anyone?
I don't know. I feel like you're gonna run. I feel like we're gonna run into like a market issue though at some point, where it's like, okay, like because I guess I'm just taking a step further from what Pyra was just saying. Like, okay, well, the industry is saying, okay, there's a demand for this, but where's the demand coming from? There's a market. I guess it's just it's a society thing. It always comes back to
like that. Like I said this earlier, just so like we could like this is something like the last topic that like unfortunately misogyny is older than rap music, right? It's been literally almost it's the dawn of our civilization in certain aspects. Like, yeah, we have this long-standing issue that's like just seeped its way into like yet another aspect of our media and how we portray things. Like how we get rid of it out of the media, like, you know, pay attention to more women rappers and shit, you know, pay attention to like newer diverse shit that's not like objectifying women. Like that's like the only way as people we can actually influence that. Buy those albums instead.
I had a question though that I want to ask, actually specifically, I guess it will be to Baha in this case, about the like rap culture or just typically whatever the body of rap is out there right now, because I'm not that into it that much, so I don't know. So is I think you said earlier that homophobia is like increased, or it's like bigger now than it was before, or is it has oh my bad, I must have misheard. Okay, but seeing that and considering, do you think that was a thing that it just naturally just changed because culture kind of shifted and changed? Because I'm thinking that, like, if anything, I feel like the misogyny is something that's going to go away as a culture shift rather than something where you specifically target rap and then it changes society. I don't know if how much I feel that you're going to change society just by changing what's getting marketed. I know there's going to be effect for it, but I think that, okay, like if homophobia was something that kind of naturally went by the wayside, fortunately, which is a good thing, then these other things that are societal issues are probably going to go away independent of that. Because anything that's a problem before something, and before something exists, in this case, like rap is not nearly as old as homophobia in this case. Like, is it really? I don't know how much weight we're gonna if it's worth focusing too much on saying, okay, we need to remove this thing, like rap is causing this and we need
I see what you mean. Now, the interesting thing is, I don't think homophobia naturally left. Unless you count labels' influence as naturally leaving, I specifically like, and I can't bring this up, and this isn't like a thing that's studied or something like that, but occasionally there will be like leaked like bars and like, you know, just one-offs from rappers that don't release officially, like, you know, aren't streamed or whatever, or just like snippets of a song that are found on like, you know, a leaked SoundCloud or something. And it will have like maybe like an F slur in there or something homophobic. But those songs, like in versions of those songs, will never hit like Spotify or anything. And partially, not partially, I think a large part of that is that homophobia is way less accepted at large the way it was in rap compared to misogyny. And I don't know, it seems kind of arbitrary that you know, culture has dictated that like we feel really bad when we hear rappers saying the F slur. But like, I don't think like a lot of people in rap are just saying, you know, I don't want to be homophobic anymore. Like, I love the gay people. I think people do feel that way and they see more of a side now, but I don't think that's a conscious effort. I think it's a lot of label influence saying that this does not play well. Whereas calling a woman a bitch or like just being like misogynistic, talk about fucking hoes and shit like that, that has been a staple for so long that I don't think people have a problem with. Because at the end of the day, even women that like listen to like hip hop,
Even the
fine with
females.
oh God, not the dreaded F word. Well, that F word. But they listen to hip hop and they're fine with it. I see a lot of people, and this is anecdotal, but like they'll listen to songs that talk about, you know, like fucking hoes and shit, like, and they don't care.
But
Yeah, and I think it's the thing where it's like,
sorry, no, you would, no, you go.
I mean,
yeah, it's just real quick. I was gonna say that I think that a better word to use instead of glorifying things, like what we've been saying, like glorifying misogyny, glorifying things. I think this normalizing is actually what's happening. I think that it's like it's just normalizing these things in society. I don't think it's necessarily glorifying. I think it's just normalizing it.
It could be both. Like it doesn't even necessarily need to be normalizing if it's already like normal, right? Like if it's like a day-to-day routine for you, then it's glorification probably. And then I don't know. The point is, the thing I wanted to talk about though wasn't that.
But before you change the subject, then I really want to tackle this then, because and then we'll go straight to you. And I also want to tackle Clavicus's question me, but I didn't get to that either. But I can do that a little later. But Baha, you're saying that women listen to this, sure, right? But what choice do they have? If you like hip hop, then what are your alternatives when it comes to how women are portrayed? Right?
You don't. And I'm not making the claim that they have anywhere to go. I simply think that the reason why homophobia didn't happen is because it was like a dictated change from labels. And I think the misogyny doesn't bother people, maybe on a statistics level, as much as the homophobia.
So no,
that's the only thing I can point to, because it is a weird shift. I'm not saying it's normal or like this is like something I think would happen. I, honest to God, just think that like that's probably some marketing guy's job is to look at how these bars like play off or these songs. Like when you look at Eminem, he had so many headlines based on being like a homophobic asshole in a lot of his songs. Those are the things that stick out more than him like talking about, you know, even killing a woman in some songs. Like, I think it's arbitrary. I think it's weird. I don't know what the shift is. Women do not have a choice not to listen to this. But at the same time, I'm not going to act like women aren't like, you know, they're not head nodding to a lot of songs that are just about fucking hoes and leaving.
No, certainly, they absolutely are, right? But then, like you said before, first of all, like you could be nodding your head just to the beat, right? So there's that, like, so. But I just want to make the point that that within this marketplace, right, that's crowded, it's like barely any place to go to get in any other sort of representation of women. And so the fact that they may be like nodding their head along as well, this is who else am I going to listen to, right? So I just wanted to make that point. Clive, I'm going to get to your point eventually. We'll go to Madeline first.
I think you guys nailed it. I was just gonna say, like, I don't think women naturally are going to, like, you can listen to something and like go along with it and then deeply resent the fact that you've heard it or seen it or whatnot. Like you're not going to see the actual reaction. That's all I was going to say.
You can write you can make movies, right, about black crime, right, and black people victimizing white people, right? And you're like, well, I hate the themes of this movie, but it's actually really well made, right? And it's actually
300. I don't know. I saw 300. It it made me mad. Like half of me was pretty upset about this. Had a lot of problems with the whole.
But that cinematography though,
The Persian
no,
thing.
the scenery was
unacceptable.
beautiful.
Matt Latin's
Unacceptable.
Persian too, so just in case you were confused as to why he's bringing up that
Yeah,
movie.
nah, it was nonsense. It was just like, all right. It actually, to be honest, like that sort of thing actually ruined the movie for me.
Mm.
And that's a perfect example because I didn't say anything immediately to the folks I was with when I saw it. I was just like, like just
Mhm.
held it in, and then raged for like a month.
And quick aside, before you answer Clavicus's question, I just want to say someone in chat pointed out, I think it's Tiny God, like I think a big help towards like removing homophobia from rap a little bit, and I say a little bit specifically, is because Young Thug, if you know who that is, and Little Uzi Vert, like these are like two huge mega rap stars right now that are like, and Tyler the Creator, they're blurring the line between like what is considered hyper masculine or what is like tolerated as hyper masculine in rap. Like they are like super effeminate people in a lot of ways. You can point them out, and they just are super popular despite that. And when they're accused of being called gay, I think sometimes they do like react with violence to like prove that hyper masculine point a little bit. But at the end of the day, like skinny jeans came back in rap because of people like this. Young Thug wore a dress for his album cover. Like Little Uzi Vert is like one of the most effeminate men ever, but also one of the biggest. Like Playboy Cardi, like super huge dude who's like pretty effeminate, wears like all kinds of like Prada and leather shit that just typically was not seen around the rap game like even 5 years ago. And like these people are just big, and I think that kind of helps because these people clearly are not the hyper masculine like shooters and shit that were like always in rap, and they've propagated, and people are fine wearing their skinny jeans and wearing like like a bag, like a purse that traditionally men wouldn't wear. Like people are fine with doing it because their favorite rap stars are doing it. So I think that helps a little bit. They still respond in the same hyper masculine ways other rappers do, but they present way less like, oh, I got to be a big tough guy. Like that's their gimmick.
Let's go back to the hyper masculine thing a little later on, because or in the toxic masculinity, honestly. So let's go back to that. So first of all, Clav, could you ask your question you had about the misogyny thing, so I can try to do a better job?
Oh man. So it was something along the lines of if we concede that portrayals of women, the misogynistic portrayals of women is damaging, then wouldn't we also concede that the way that we're portraying black people could also be damaging? I think it was something along the lines of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Ability politics towards women. I think that's like kind of the gist.
Yeah. So one, like so the people I'm concerned about, and I think my arguments have conveyed this, are people within the black community, because this is originally a black art form. Hip hop has gone international, right? Rap and hip hop has gone international, and I'm actually very glad about that. I'm glad that there other communities are taking it, making it their own, and doing that stuff with it. I think that's beautiful, actually. But I would say that focusing on the black made part of this, right, and whatever comes out of Eminem's mouth, I guess. Focusing on the black made part of this, black women are victimized by this type of language, right? It's not us changing things for the maybe benefit of white people. It's us changing things for our black sisters who are subjected to like hearing these things and maybe experiencing these things in their real life, right? Like to make a better world for them. I think that's definitely. I think that's better than hoping that an outside group will think better of us when they have really no reason to, right?
So, like, my problem with this is like you're framing it in a way where it's like to benefit white people, and I personally don't see it like that. If I can get someone to think better of me, well, then I expect them to treat me better. If they come up like we're talking specifically about black people in the black community. If they think that like black women are just like really promiscuous and they're really out there, and they just think that black dudes are like thugs and shit, that does affect the way they might treat people. And like if I can get that, like I feel like if like that's not there or that's lessened a little bit, like that can have an effect. It's not for the benefit of the white people. It's so like people
Right.
might be treated a little bit better. I don't like that specific framing.
Yeah, so I'm going. So the question, as it was written and whatever earlier, was like, should we at all be concerned with how people outside the community view it, right? And that was in regard to like violence, misogyny, homophobia. So like, if I certainly I care about like, okay, how Black women are being treated within their communities, but I also care how they're being treated by people outside their community too. I don't like divorce those two things.
Sorry, say that last part again.
So of course I'm concerned about how Black women are treated
Mm.
within their, within the Black community,
Mm.
but I'm also concerned about how they're treated outside of their community as well, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't separate those two things.
But as I said before, that like Black women being exoticized and like that, like Asian women, like that's existed for quite a long time, and so like again, I'm not because that sounds like respectability politics to me. It's like, okay, we're gonna get our shit together, or quote unquote get our shit together, because what does that mean in the first place? So that white people will let us in the club. White people will not let us in the club by emulating their mannerisms. That's not going to happen, right?
So I think
white supremacy
sorry
white supremacy is in itself a benefit, right? I mean, it does hurt white people too, but like on the face of it, it's a benefit for them. So like keeping these supremacist the supremacist mindset, this framework, these institutions, all of that, right? None of that will be brought down by cleaning up hip hop for them. And like I said previously, right? What are the reasons why we're doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? Because that's what matters to me too, right? The reasons why we're doing it and what we expect to get out of it. If we expect to get what we expect to get out of this is that we will have a better place within American society, right? Then it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen that way.
I don't think anyone here is like actually saying this is going to solve like racism or like the actual institution of like white supremacy, but like it might make it a little bit easier. Like I think that's where I'm coming from, and I think that's where Clavicus is coming from. Like it might be a little bit easier to fight against that narrative that like a bunch of people already hold, if they then can't be like, well, what about your rap music? You do this with your women.
Didn't we? Like this is like when Democrats act like Republicans, is it not? Like just like saying, oh well, we'll do this thing to cater to this group, and this group will finally respect us and vote for us, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But like again, we're missing the point. No one is saying that this is going to solve the issue wholesale. But no one is making that argument.
It's not going to solve the issue at all. I'm saying it's not going to solve it at all. At all.
You don't think that like the not the appearance, but like the way like we don't we objectify our women. You don't think that has an effect on how like other people see us and how we see ourselves?
Do you think that the way you dress, right? That if you dress in a suit, right? If you dress in a suit, will that stop a cop from victimizing you, from beating the shit out of you, from searching you illegally, right? Or stop? Yeah. Do you think any of that will help?
On an individual level, no, but on a on
a mass level?
On a level where we're talking influence, like maybe a little bit. If like hold on. Wait, time out. We talk about
point. Like I think
time out.
Wearing suits every single day.
No, cuts leave. Shut the fuck up. Like you're making it like my point is, and we talk about this a lot on this panel, is like the way media displays certain people can affect how the society views them. It's like the cycle that Bahablis was talking about. So we have to, figure out ways where we can attack it, because it's not the entire media's problem. You can shake your head all you want, Prime, but it's not the entire media's problem, right?
I don't understand this. So like, what we're saying is that, like, okay, within the Black community, how women are viewed within the Black community, rap can shape how people view Black women in the Black community. But outside of that, couldn't happen?
No, you're not listening to
or
me.
you just don't, or you don't care.
You're not listening to me. Like, I don't care how white people look at us, like, from the perspective of hip hop, right? Because the white supremacist structures that they are upholding, right? There are the benefits to that exist wholly outside of hip hop. Wholly outside of the music industry, right? Those things, right? Those structures are powerful, and they will not be brought down by hip hop disappearing. That's just not going to happen.
So,
They're not.
so
Hold
the
on,
thing
let me
is,
finish. Holy shit. So they're not going to be brought down by any of that. So I don't know why we would take that away from ourselves, right? For their benefit, because it's simply it's a fool's errand, right? Like the broader work of dismantling racism is something that's going to take centuries, right? And I'm telling you, hip hop ain't a brick in that.
oh yes, it
But
is. You're intentionally wrong here.
okay, great.
not,
And
because-
great. So yeah, and when it comes to misogyny, right? Misogyny, I'm saying that is for the benefit of people within our community, right? I said previously, you asked me, and I said it previously, that media does affect individuals. Absolutely, right? It does affect individuals. How people are portrayed in the media says it. I look back on the bot. I said that. But like I'm saying that the benefits and the reasons why you would make rap music more inclusive for Black women, right? Not talking about anyone else. I'm talking about Black women, right? I think that is a worthwhile goal and something that's more achievable than dismantling the powerful institution of white supremacy.
So like we could make the same we can make the same argument about the powerful institution of the patriarchy, right? Like in all like it's evil, like man-centered things, right? We could make that same argument, but like when you say that like rap is not going to have anything to do with dismantling these pillars, it's going to have an effect, right? Rap is one of the most popular genres in the music industry right now. If we can change that a little bit for the better, like maybe we drop one or two, but like holy shit, we still have many people listening.
Hold on, you need to get the white folks in the boardrooms who own these music labels and record labels or whatever.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like
for like the violent stuff, if that's what you're getting at. But like the point is, this is not about like the perception, right? Like the misogyny in music is about respecting folks, right? Like it hurts to hear lyrics like that versus this idea that women are being afraid of men thinking that they are like this. It's not the fact that women are afraid of men thinking that they are promiscuous. It's the fact that women feel disrespected when they hear the lyrics.
I don't know if that's true though, right? Because that could be reflected in actions that, like, how men actually treat women, and I think that's actually what some of what Prime was getting at within the community, how the men are treating the women too.
But also how they are seeing.
But it's not about.
Go
ahead.
You go ahead, Madeline.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not about even if that's how men are treating women, right? Like, that's part of why it might hurt. The actual fact is that you are taking something that is important, like what it means to be a woman in the first place, and making it a bad thing, right? Like, that's what misogyny is taking a person and treating them like an object. Like that's not
how they're
same
treated.
thing.
That's what I said.
Right. So, but that's not the same thing at all as what it would be like for someone who is looking at rap and thinking to themselves, like, I mean, maybe there is something to like. Maybe we can make this argument where there's like folks who are Black who feel like rap music is unfairly making them see. Yeah, I mean, I guess, right? Like, I guess you could go in that direction. You could say like it's disrespectful for some folks who are like straight edge or not into gangs, or like just the idea that everybody who has Black heritage is into rap, right?
So,
like I think you go in that line, but I don't think you can say that it's okay for how others perceive us to be like the reason why rap music changed.
So I think part of the issue, you're saying that we can say the same thing in terms of the patriarchy, right? Well, if your goal is to bring down the patriarchy by getting rid of misogyny in rap music, then you're going to fail for that. That's not the point that I was making.
So when you make this argument, then I have to ask, whose goal was it in this panel to take down the white supremacy in like the industry? Like not the industry, but like the whole system with the fucking rap music. No one has been saying that.
Yeah,
like that's the argument you're making against, but like no one's saying that.
You're saying but you've been saying the entire time, oh, this is going to help. I'm saying it's not going to help. I'm saying it's
I'm
not.
Yeah,
saying-
gonna help.
no. Wait,
Here's what I-
I'm saying
Go ahead,
that it might. I'm saying it might make it easier.
What
You're
does
saying
that
we're
mean?
not going
What
to.
does easier mean if not help? What does
It,
easier
it
might-
means
mean?
the same
it
thing
may-
that
it may-
means when you're applying it to the black community. So you apply it in the black community, and you're saying this can help over here. But then when you apply over
No.
here, it doesn't
no,
work.
no. The
Or you don't
white
care.
community,
You're
the
saying that it
white
doesn't care.
community, the white community, the white community, the white community. How many times I have to say
I know,
it?
that's
The
what I
white
just
community.
refer-
No,
that's
you
what I
said
just
black
referred
community
to.
just now.
I know. I said if you apply it over here in the black community,
Okay.
and then you apply it here, it's something different. The here over here is the white community.
Yes, because I don't care about the white community's perception of the black community, and I don't think that this will be the goal of this. We'll do the goal of reforming hip hop or rap, right? I don't think that will actually accomplish much of anything, and certainly not worth what we'll lose, right? To appease white people. I think that's never a worthwhile goal.
And
but-
no one's saying that we should get rid of rap.
No, hold
No
on.
one's saying we
no.
should get-
No.
He was saying
to-
change
I said
rap.
reform. I said reform.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Reform.
Okay, yeah. But I think in terms of like within the community, within the black community, right? It is a worthwhile goal to, for instance, one thing, make rap more accessible, right? Like violence does not make rap less inaccessible for a specific demographic, right? It doesn't make it less accessible to white people. White people love this shit, right? Suburban white people, they buy shit out all the time. It doesn't make it less accessible to the fucking international audience. It doesn't make it less accessible to black people, right? Now, there are people within those communities who don't like to hear the violence, right? Who may not. But like, it's not like excluding anyone the way that misogyny excludes people, right? It can say to a woman that you are worth less than, right? Like hearing these lyrics, right? You are worth less than, and so I think, especially to concerning the women, black women, right? Women in the community, to I think it's a worthwhile goal to change the landscape for them. Specifically for them, especially since oftentimes those lyrics are dealing with their bodies. So that is worthwhile to me, and not the other stuff. Hoping.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can make an argument for reforming the rap community solely based on like the black community, and like I'll keep it towards the black community. Like I understand your point. No, you don't give a fuck about the white community. Understood.
I like white people. I like white people.
No, like when we're talking about like what they think. Yeah, I get what you. Yeah, but like when we talk about reforming, I can make somewhat of the same argument. Like it's smaller to an extent than excluding all of like women in general. But like when we look at some of the things that rap music and like these newer trends are glorifying and whatnot, when people who don't necessarily fit that stereotype or don't want to adhere to that stereotype listen to that, they feel left out. And like since they don't typically listen to it, a slur that gets thrown around is like they get called an Oreo. And like, sometimes it's simply because they don't listen to rap music or like they don't adhere to those stereotypes specifically that are glorified in rap. That can disenfranchise people within the black community, not to the same extent as women though. So it's like, if we're going to rank it, less of a problem, but it can do somewhat of the same thing of disenfranchising people.
Yeah, I guess. Sure. I mean,
It seems like a stretch. Yeah. I mean, like that would be like red pilling the argument as far as you can, right? Like it would be like.
It is, but if you're consistent, we have to
Yeah,
acknowledge that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
don't say like it's
I
a
said
red pill.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like we are disenfranchised. Like it is in the black community, and we are disenfranchising a portion of the black
But I'm
community.
not saying that's a bad thing. Like, I mean, I'm saying that is a bad thing, but I'm not saying your argument is a bad argument. I mean that.
No, I want to hear what Prime was gonna say.
I say hip hop can't be all things to all people, right? And then, first of all, if you're going to call a kid an Oreo for that, well, then you're being fucking racist any which way, right? Or you're engaging in anti-blackness one way or the other, right? That's like that in itself is them engaging in that, right? And another reason why we shouldn't be concerned about them, white people, right, or other people, not just white people say that, but like white people and their beliefs, right, when it comes to our music. But yeah, I acknowledged when I did my last rant, saying that like people within the black community, right, or those other demographics cannot like the music or for the violence, right, can be upset about it. But like that is different. That is qualitatively different from like a young kid who's like, well, yeah, like I've my life doesn't reflect any of this, right? Uh,
Well,
like
I'm not. Wait. I'm
that's
not talking.
different.
I'm not talking specifically about the violence. I'm talking about like the homophobia and the misogyny as well. Like,
Oh.
if you don't present that way, like, and you don't fit those specific stereotypes and shit that can present, right? Like, when rap music talks about like, I sleep with a bunch of bitches and like they're just
Yeah.
bodies to me.
Yeah.
If you don't fit that specific stereotype, you can get bullied for that shit. Like, if you
Yeah,
don't
so
like,
another reason to get rid of it. So pray.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, reform that type of stuff out of it. So, like,
Okay.
in the black community, these bridges can be mended. The same way I would like agree with you on the point you made about women.
Yeah, but that's the point I was making. That was what I was making, right? To get rid of that stuff, right?
Oh yeah, no, I was just
About the
making.
why,
Okay.
right? So you guys are debating the why, and now I think Pyro understands.
Well, so I wasn't really debating the why. I was debating the should. So I read the question, which was, should we at all be concerned with how how people outside the
Yeah.
community view it, right? And that doesn't mean being concerned about how people outside the community view rap music doesn't mean that you are changing rap music to get them to consume rap music. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people treating people poorly because of media portrayal, essentially. So, in the same way that I would be concerned about the safety of women, for instance, in regard whether they're in the black community or not, I'd be concerned about black women being safe in the black community. I don't know. I should be concerned with how people outside of that community are viewing rap and how they're going to treat black women outside of the community. I don't know, like the
That's
idea
part of
that
the
I just don't
question.
want to appease white people doesn't seem like a good justification to no longer care about that.
And like, if we're gonna like actually go off the question, like as it's written in chat, like, it's not just white people who will hold these stereotypes against black people because of like what they see in media depictions, right? Like, there's racism amongst the races, and like a lot of these stereotypes get brought up.
And look, sorry, first of all, I don't know why this is fetishization of the question. Like, the conversations that we have shift and move all the time, right? So, like, whatever, right? Like, I wrote the question as a conversation starter, and the
I was just
conversation has
responding to my
shifted.
black
Sure.
ones.
Okay. But, like, I don't know.
I mean, no. I'm
Okay.
saying this because like this is being brought up. Like, if like the answer to the question you wrote is like you just don't care about what white people think, that's fine. But like when I bring up an aspect that like, yeah, it's a part of the question as it's written, like I shouldn't be talked down like it's like a something way out of left field. I
I didn't
understand
say
like
it
we're
was
talking
way out
about
of left field.
No, but I'm not saying you said. I'm not saying.
it.
I'm not saying you said it, but like the way the pushback kind of seemed like it. I'm not saying you intended it or at all.
Okay.
So I think like going to Clavicus's point where like if it is creating like a negative direct impact, like if people hear these rap lyrics and they think that there's like certain acceptable behaviors that are like they're from outside the culture, they go visit somewhere, I guess, and they're acting in a way that is like okay in rap but not okay in real life, I would say that that would be a problem, sure. I just don't know how often that happens, I guess. And then on the other hand, like I also feel like folks who listen to rap to the point where they are, interacting with the black community kind of sort of just become a part of that community from what I've seen. So like I don't know if that concern is actually a valid one either unless they're really, really dumb doing this like one-time thing, I guess. Like, are you saying like this is a regular thing that would happen where like, folks from like the suburbs would go to the hood and like act like assholes? Is that the point? Or is it more along the lines of folks from suburbia would try to like fit into black culture because, they decide to start hanging out in an urban area and now the question is, are they going to always act in this sort of manner? Like, are you saying this is going to be like a long-term thing or a short-term thing, I guess is my question.
I'm saying that in the ways that somebody within the community could be adversely affected by this, I would imagine that outside of the community, they could also be adversely affected by this.
But I
So-
think kind of what the thing that Prime kind of was getting at is that people who are that if someone let's say for example a person who isn't who isn't portraying this negative rap lifestyle goes somewhere to the suburbs or whatever, and then they get treated a certain way, they get treated negatively. That's just racism. That like kind of doesn't really have anything specifically to do with the music. It's like sure people are taking this away from there, but I think that even if the music wasn't there, there's plenty of other things that people are drawing their stereotypes from anyway. So I think that's kind of the point that Prime was getting at. I could be wrong, but
Yeah. So I mean, I agree with that. Like, I think they would be acting similar no matter what. I don't know if the rap music would actually change that.
Yeah, the goal
But
once
the-
again is to make rap music more inclusive. So to bring in black women, right? Like that's the goal that I'm talking about, and not like bringing down the patriarchy, right? So on the other side, when it comes to the violence, the goal has nothing to do with like bringing in more people, right? Like I don't think that's even worthwhile. I don't think that's a worthwhile. I don't think it's worthwhile. One, because people don't seem to mind that, right? The violence, for the most part, right? That's why hip hop took over the world, like so they don't seem to mind that one way or the other. But the goal there, it seems, and that from your arguments was uh, to somehow make race relations better through this way, right? Not breaking down white supremacy. You didn't say that, great. But to somehow make it better. I'm saying that like that itself isn't a worthwhile goal, because I don't think it's at all a goal that I don't think that hip hop is a piece of that puzzle. But if you're talking about making hip hop something that everyone like, that women don't feel attacked by, right? Then that's something that we can do. That's something that,
So
yeah.
I see where like I got a little bit confused. Like when I say make it better,
Mhm.
like I don't necessarily mean the systems themselves. I mean like rap, because like the point of the question is like, can we imagine a popular form of rap that doesn't feature these themes? So like
Okay.
like that was my botch of language. When
Okay.
I say make it better, I mean like make rap as a genre better. Like I don't think it's gonna change the overall system or anything, but like making rap better,
Okay.
more inclusive, we can get rid of a lot of these negative things. Like all of them that's been mentioned on the panel so far. And that would make it better because like it include a lot more people,
Okay.
like all over the spectrum, including women.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. So then, for the meantime, talking about that toxic masculinity thing, right? So, d- so I guess this is not wholly removed from the misogyny part, right? But I think it's so distinct in like how men should act. And so Baha was making the point that, and I gotta admit, I don't know most of these names. I don't know most of these people, but I'm gonna take Baha's word for it. That there's a lot that the types of performers that you're seeing has diversified, right? And I'm assuming these people are successful. I don't know. But well, one, do you think that the top of hip hop or in rap, like, do you think that like the top performers have they actually diversify? Because you can have small rappers come out, right, and you know, act all kinds of ways, but you're small and you've got like a niche community, right, and they'll accept you whatever you do, right? But like, and maybe you can a few of them can crack open to the mid tier, but like the people at the very top of the game, like are any of them like uh sorry, not do you see diversity within that realm? Basically, is what I'm asking.
I think we're
Uh,
starting to.
yeah, if you mean diversity as in like, do you mean gender or do you mean like just in style?
Toxic,
or-
yes, yeah. With that, with like not promoting toxic masculinity and like having a different like form of what masculine can be, right? Like a more feminine form, like whatever that means, you know. But like not like the hard-bodied, my whole thing is that like I'm so great, I can kick your ass, I can take your woman from you, right? You're a woman, right?
I
And
see what you mean.
yeah.
They it definitely is way more diverse. So like again, I'll appeal to Young Thug and Little Uzi Vert, and like maybe not right now. The pandemic fucked up a lot of things. If I go to the top 100 charts, but these people like they've become mainstays in rap, And they, again, have given a way different view on what it means to be masculine. And of course, that part is tied more to like materialism and just like, and maybe a little bit of being more in touch with your feelings. Like rappers that are at the top, like these two, and Lil Nas X and like other, like The Weeknd doesn't count, he kind of sings. But these people like have made more of a image of themselves. Lil Uzi Vert has made more of an image of himself by being more in tune with his emotions and by appealing to less about fighting and getting into like, gun violence and shit like that, and more into just like fashion. So like materialism, having money, and just being like, talking about women and stuff like that, like in a romantic way. And these things have definitely diversified the pool a lot. There are a lot of people, when we look at the top, do this thing, and it definitely spreads to the bottom. So when you hear like a SoundCloud rapper as like a pejorative sometimes, or even just like a dynamic of artists that, someone low level can be, it's more about being an emotional sad boy rapper. It's more about talking about things that aren't traditionally masculine, just like about using drugs to deal with your feelings, about like what it's like to like lose a girl and stuff like that. And I think these things diversify rap a lot from like the gangster rap era. There's definitely still a lot of that, but like at the same time, like Tyler the Creator, his last album before this current one was not even considered a rap album. He's a rapper, like a rap star, but like there's people like Tyler the Creator that are trying to change being a rapper to being an artist. Because like from a media perspective, we can see that there's a clear like distinction between rappers and artists, like in historically. But people talk about rappers insane. I will never forget that like when DMX died, and he was like on some like magazine page, it was like the Prince Charles, whoever died, wasn't that Prince Charles? I forget him. It was like a dual page with him on one side, like, oh, the Prince has died, and so is DMX, the rapper. Like, not mentioning the fact that he's like a multi-million-dollar like artist that has like influenced so much of like the music landscape. He's just been a rapper, and we see people fighting against that like stereotype. And as these people get more popular, like they are taking up spots on the charts, and they are just being like different than the stereotype. So I know I went on a long way, but essentially, yes, there's a way more diversified sphere of rap that's included.
That was very useful. Thank you for that. What do you all think? Do you all agree, or?
Yeah, like I think we're starting to see it diversify from a lot of that. I think when we're talking about like misogyny and like homophobia and stuff like that specifically, like, there are a few people, you can name right off the bat, like who are kind of changing the game. Like we went through the list of female rappers, and like, there are some gay rappers out there that are, starting to turn the ball. Like,
It wasn't like Will Smith like already doing that too, like a little back in the day before he went.
Yeah, way back.
I
way
mean,
back in the day.
I
and
guess
his son, like, and Jaden Smith, Sire Smith, is another person. Like, if you look up like Jaden Smith's like image right now, he is like not at all the stereotypical rapper. And he puts out music, but he leverages his position to be more of an artist. He wants to be more artsy, more out of the box, while putting out raps and being considered hip hop. Like,
No cap, Jaden Smith's Twitter is way better than his rap career.
He's out of his like weird phase of Twitter. Like that was a funny like years ago. He's like doing shit, like he's making like sustainable water, like he's doing like all kinds of like neat shit. And he's like someone who's considered big. He's Will Smith, so that helps. And he's like he's
it's everything.
That type of rapper that's changing like the name of the
I think that now that we've got like social media platforms and everything too, I think it's a lot easier for there to be visibility on people who aren't just whatever the market is propping up too. So I kind of hesitate whenever we say like, okay, like things are changing or things are getting better, when like I think that we have to look at it through the lens of what's visible to us now. So I think that even like if you go back and like if you listen to some like underground rappers or things like that, like artists that weren't on the labels, it's like there probably were a lot of people putting out music, but they just weren't making it big. So I think it's kind of I think it's kind of important to remember that we're also looking at the issue of rap just being painted as whatever's Billboard Top 100, whatever. That's that type of stuff too. So I'm not gonna say that that there aren't more artists out there doing like soft rap instead of just doing like the violent type of stuff. But I think it's important to always remember that like they're like back in the day you had to get like mixtapes from people and things like that. Like it's just like a lot more grassroots, I guess is the word. I don't know if that's a word or not, but that's what the word I'll use. But
I can say that
yeah,
technology
like
is making it better, right? Like that's
yeah,
like what's the thing. Like technology is making it a lot easier for folks to shift their viewpoints because they're getting a lot more, input. I also want to do chat justice real quick. It was Prince Philip, not Prince Charles, who died.
Prince Philip.
It
Not
was
that it
Queen
matters.
Elizabeth.
But no, fair enough.
I
Fair
don't care
enough.
about
Yeah.
you,
Oh
but
boy, a monarch died. Hallelujah.
But actually, to go with that like SoundCloud point, a lot of these people, Juice World, huge artist, huge artist, like Lil Uzi Vert, like Little Peep, these are all sad boy rappers that don't necessarily always talk about like violence that came from SoundCloud and like are charting. I mean, Little Peeps like passed instead of Juice World, but like their songs still chart like when they come out posthumously, and these are like exactly the people that are genre defining kind of this era. Like when we have, like I find it hard to have like talks about like is rap changing at the same time that we're also having and this is not from anyone in this panel, but just in general at large. The hip hop community wants to talk about like, oh, is rap super violent? Is rap like a problem? Is it even changing? But we also want to talk about how this like era of rap is like super like dependent on drugs and like they're the drug users. They're not the drug slingers anymore. They're the drug users. And largely they use the drugs because they're rapping about their depression, their anxiety, things that bother them. In some cases, even the violent ones rap about drugs to talk about recovering from the violence that they cause. Like that is a thing. Like popping perks before you go like spin a block and shit like that is commonplace. It's in a lot of people's raps. Even people that aren't like this SoundCloud younger sad boy image, people that are really hard, like Emily Choppa and shit like that. Like these are people that actively do drills, actively do violence, but at the same time, he's top in charge while talking about how his friends are like hitting like a perk off their guns before they go spin the block and go find their ops. Like that's a thing. So there has to be a shift. Like I will 100% say that. It might not be the best because it comes with the drug use and shit like that, but it's not straight up like always about the killing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's good to know.
We should talk about drug use. If that's a good topic. There's like we're the drug users now. This is the drug user era. Rappers want to be talking about how many Xans and perks they're popping, which is really bad because a couple of people I listed have died because of drug overdoses. Like, as much as violence is an issue of killing rappers, there's a lot of rappers that die off some dumb shit from like being in the wrong place at the wrong time with some drugs, or if you're like Juice World, accidentally overdosing trying to hide your weed on a plane. Like, it's crazy. He like, swallowed so many pills, like he was pronounced dead on the scene because he was scared because his private jet pilot was ratting him out to the place they were going to land in because they had so much weed on the plane that he was like, fuck it. If one of my mans that's also with me on the plane is going to take the charge for the weed, I have these pills on me. Like, I can't get them off me before they come in the plane. I'll just pop them all. And he like died at the airport. Like, that shit is like super crazy. It's super sad. And it's like, there's an active talk even amongst rappers that is like, okay, we need to all stop taking pills. Like, we need to stop this shit. But it's an addiction and it's prolific in the music. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. So that's like a good conversation. You want to ever have a topic about that? Because it's crazy. It's literally insane. How many kids are taking Xanax that are from the burbs and shit like that? There are people that are in the trenches taking this shit to like ease the pain. And there are people that like are completely removed from all this rap that we're talking about, not affected by the violence, but they are affected by the prolific use of drugs to like shield the pain, to shield emotions that we all feel. Like that is what's being pushed. And that's like a real poison, I think, for everybody.
What do y'all think of that?
I mean, yeah.
It's a national crisis, right? Like,
yeah, like
everybody's popping pills.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, like a couple of studies came out that said like a high alcohol abuse amongst minors was like linked tangentially to like rap music because like it's one of the main props essentially, right? Like you always got a bottle in your hand while you're doing literally everything they talk about, and it's like
got the Henny, got the lean.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we pick that up as a society. Like we pick up shit that's laid down in media like that for us. So like I think Baja Blast hit it on the point.
Were
Hit
there
it on the head.
100,000 drug overdoses in 2020
Jesus
is that real?
Jesus
I think I heard something similar. But I don't want to quote any numbers. Some people can yell at me. I don't know. But if I heard it was something massive like that.
It's sad because I feel like the number's kind of low. Like, but that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the lean era was the thing. People were literally drinking codeine in a cup and getting like Lil Wayne had a seizure before he went to a concert. Like these are crazy, like big like shifts in rap that like they just went crazy.
I think you
Drugs were there before. It just wasn't like this,
I-
right? Like it,
I think you beat me to it. Like I was gonna say like scissor, right? And everyone,
That hurt.
yeah, like uh, everyone like glorifying that, and like how this is such a like good thing to like do, right? Like, and I think getting rid of that something I don't know. I mean, okay, so I guess this goes back to how we started this. You know, like is art imitating life or life imitating art here? Is it that people are is that these rappers were just coming up with this stuff and saying, hey, this is a cool thing that you should be doing, young kids, right? Or was it that within the community people are already doing these things and they're like, oh, okay, well this is like, yeah, I take this stuff and I have a really good time at parties like all of you are already doing.
So like I'll answer the question the same way I did the first time it was brought up, except for I won't call it stupid because like I understand it's a very important conversation to have. But like the answer is very obvious. It's a societal issue. Like society brought like we covered it in every single topic like we hit on. Society like had these issues way before rap music, and now that it's like getting in there, it's something that's being perpetuated as something to make money. The same with any type of media that we see today when it comes to like their bad representation and shit. So like I think it's like a chicken and the egg. The egg came first. Chicken didn't evolve until like millions of years after. With this issue, how like what's affecting which? It's our society. Like our society is like putting up with it, and like therefore it makes money.
I'll go
people's-
hard on the other side. I think the music is 100% influencing the Xan zombies that I see. Like kids in high school, I don't know where they would get the idea of finding a Xanax, like to just be popping Xannies like that if it wasn't for the music they listen to.
like I mean, like probably a decade and a half ago, I knew people who were just like they had like a pill bottle, right? And like it was like a Tylenol or an aspirin or whatever, and like inside the bottle would be just like a myriad of different pills, right? Like they're just like they'd be at the bar, they'd get their little Tylenol bottle out, pull out whatever pill they felt like, pop it, and then like go on with their nightlife or whatever, right?
So like
So I'm just saying like this stuff has been around for
yeah, like to that issue, I'd say like if we're not limiting it to like children who shouldn't be able to get these prescriptions in the first place, maybe you can like stretch it and make that argument. But like when we're talking about the drug epidemic whole, like I'll have to refer to like the Prime's argument against me. Like it wasn't rap music that caused this; it was like the mass prescription of like opiates and shit throughout the country that just went unchecked for a number of years. Like, and those doctors probably weren't listening to rap artists tell them how to do that, right? Like. I mean, unless they are, I'd love to hear that rap. Like, yo, overprescribe some prescription drugs. Like, come on.
I want to specifically say also, I don't think it calls like drug use at large, but I think like Xan zombie kids, and it is just a feeling. I'm admitting this is like anecdotal. This is just a feeling. But like, I really don't know if kids would know about benzos, if kids would know about like Xanny bars, like that, if they weren't listening, if Juice WRLD wasn't one of the biggest artists of the generation, one of the biggest artists to like be like relevant when these kids are growing up and going to high school, like Uzi, like all these. I feel like you can name almost every modern artist, and they like not every modern artist, but a lot of them talking about popping pills for like
but
like
is that
self-medicating.
Is that not endemic to fame, right? So like bring this down to the individuals, right? So like since we're not confused, right? Rather than the community level, which we were talking about previously, but the individual level in terms of these artists, right? Is that not endemic to fame? Like, Juice WRLD apparently dying from that overdose, and like it's an overindulgence, especially by people who are new to fame and fortune. Isn't that not like endemic to that rather than like anything else? So like let's say so my point is, if we got rid of the talk of drugs within hip hop, would that make a difference? I mean, like lots of other genres, right, have people like remove hip hop, talk about like actors, right? How many actors die from drug overdose because they got this fame, this fortune, this power, right? And no one tells them no. And so yeah, you can easily overdose. No one's going to ever tell you no or chill out, right? Then you can very easily overdose, right?
I do
Yeah.
think that's one component, but like I think it's more prevalent in the rap community. Like, I mean, you don't see like TikTok stars dying of like drug overdose. I mean, and they like
Stars.
Well, hold on. Like to combat that point,
Better keep an eye on
Mac-
Prime, y'all.
no, like to combat that point, cuts leave like the comparison Prime made. Like I don't agree with Prime's comparisons. Like from this panel, like we could already see we've had, but like he's right on this one. Like when we compare it to like something like the movie industry, it's way more prevalent than the movie industry, right? Like, but these people also have like enough resources and like the people behind them to be like, yeah, you need to get help or some shit more oftentimes than not. Like to say that it happens more in the rap genre, I honestly don't know about that one because it's almost like, every year we get like a dozen or so fucking movie stars. It's like, oh, look who's addicted to something, right? And then like as the society we are, like we just like hone in on it for like the content that it's worth.
Well, I mean, you can see this in other industries too, where it's not as prevalent. Like athletes, they get overprescribed on like painkillers, but not like they don't self medicate using like benzos, Xanax, or they don't die from it as much. I'm specifically talking about basketball and football. Um, I don't know much about like soccer and stuff, but football people get caught up in a lot of drama. But one of the drama isn't like them dying of Xan overdose, and I'm just curious on to why, as if you see the acting industry and the rapping industry, you see like more drug overuse death than if you see it in other like other industries where you get famous.
Do we have
Well,
more?
a lot of
Like, do
I
we
no,
gotta say, look, no other industry is doing lean, right? And I think that one specifically, I might not be able to make the case for all drugs, but I think if we removed like lean as a thing from rap, I think way less people would do it. I don't think
so
people
like
understand how to put codeine, Sprite, and like some fucking like Jolly Ranchers together. You know what I mean? Like that is a specific thing that admittedly is falling in usage, but is like so specific to rap that like I think we could get rid of it and probably see like a noticeable change. People like the fiends are gonna fiend no matter what. Like they're gonna find
Actually,
shit,
like
right?
so like
lawsuits. Hold on,
when
there's actually like lawsuits of NFL players. Like NFL players have done like lawsuits against the NFL saying that they were given medications like they were candy. Like there's actual like news articles
Oh
here.
yeah, I was about to bring that up, Matt. Like when we try, like when we compare it to like football and bodily activities, the main difference is like I'd say like when writers and actors and stuff and rappers use this, there's a portion that can be argued that like yeah they're easing the mind of like whatever stresses they have at first, and then like they become addicted to it and just it becomes a repetitive thing. With sports people, football and like hockey ball and whatever, you could argue like it may not be opiates, but like steroids is a big problem. Like some people do it like for the extra enhancement and then like they fucking fall off the deep end with it, right? Like Mad Laden was just saying, their coaches will give them things that like look like candy and shit to like boost their performance on the field. And then next thing you know, they're hooked on a really bad fucking drug because like, it was given to me. It was proposed that like this would make me better. And that kind of thing happens with like artists like actors and shit too. Like if an actor's having like a really bad depressive spout, like there are stories about their directors being like, yo, take this upper, it'll make you feel good so you can get through the filming today. And then like that just becomes the regular over like a 2-year shoot. And now
Or,
they're addicted.
Right. Or like sleeping pills for folks who are so stressed they can't go to sleep. They're gonna give you the this pill or that pill. I mean, like I think you
That
could point to over medication as kind
Yeah.
of really the problem more so than the music itself. Like the music itself introduces it in a specific way. I guess like you could say like folks who want to like party, like it's like more of like a party thing, I guess. But like even then, you've got folks who just know stuff who like cross pollinate and would be able to bring the stuff into those scenes anyway. It wouldn't necessarily have to be from rap music. Like half the time I feel like most like I don't know how many people actually pay attention to lyrics. I've never been good at lyrics, so like I'll hear like rap or any kind of music honestly, and I won't know half the half the stuff that the song's even talking about. Right? It's not like I'm gonna listen to the song and be like, oh wait, he's what what's benzo? Like that
No, I
just
kind of
that to me.
Right.
I kind of feel like like problems like that, especially with drugs. I think, or actually just specifically about drugs, is that I think for this specific issue, I think that it reached a certain magnitude, and then eventually rap picked up on that, or like music or certain things, art starts picking up on that, and then it starts getting portrayed. And I think it just exacerbates the issue. So I don't think it's necessarily a cause of the issue. I just think that once the issue gets too big enough, and then okay, now you add this extra aspect to it to make the issue kind of worse. I think that's kind of what's happening. So I don't think it's causing it. I just think this it's sort of exacerbates it. So, but the issue itself kind of like festered well before you started hearing it in music. So
It's like a multiplier, but you don't know what the actual like variable is, right? Like
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, like that's why I said like I think it's like to answer Prime's initial question, like it's the society. Like we can argue what causes it in society all day fucking long. People have done it, hundreds of years before us. But like when we're talking about like why does it leak in, it comes from our fucking society.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I just so I don't know. I'm wondering like what role hip hop has in all this, and maybe I just don't listen enough to the ones that like are glorifying specifically drugs, violence. I hear about misogyny, specifically drugs. I remembering back in the day, where D12 was around, and them talking about like scissor all the time, and that was like when I learned about it. It was like from them. I mean, I guess that's to what was it, Pyro's point, or no, it was Baja's point. Yeah, to Baja's point. They're like, I mean, I had never heard of this shit. And I had to look
Who
it up.
would ever discover this naturally? That's what I'm trying. Like, I think I agree a lot with Backlash there. I think it definitely exacerbates like an overarching problem that already exists with drug access that isn't needed. But I think specific things, and I'll do both Xannies and Lean. Definitely rap has like elevated those. And
I don't even know.
Again, to be fair, I think Lean is on the downswing, but
what is Lean?
It's scissor, but it's the same
okay.
shit.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. All right, fair enough. Okay.